Hello. I can't see anyone here yet, but I've gone live now. So I'll just wait until comments start to appear. Kiko's jumped down, which is good. Here she is. He was warm. He's keeping me warm. Yeah, I hope everyone is well. Obviously, there aren't too many people here yet, so I won't say anything until people start to arrive. It's hello to Cheryl. Hello. Kiko says hello as well. She's just down there. She's jumping up earlier, but I'm sure she will. I'm sure she'll jump up again at some point. Hello to AAC74, and hello to Patrick. I'll just wait for a few more people to arrive before I start. Obviously, it's been a very busy 24 hours. Hi to Zoe. Hi to Jenny. Hi to Claire. Kika says hello, Claire. Hi to Layla. Hi to Sarah. And hello to Mark from Northumberland. Hello to Bernie and Brenda. So the last 24 hours were very, very busy. I got an enormous amount of notifications, messages, emails, everything over the last 24 hours. And I didn't actually properly eat last night until 1 a.m. And I've made myself a bite to eat, and it was really good. I really enjoyed it. But I mean, maybe I should eat earlier in future. But I just had to make sure that we did everything possible. There was a lot of stuff that needed doing. There's a lot of people I needed to speak to. So, and then I thought it would be nice to go on Mark's stream because, Mark's been a real pioneer on YouTube, and he's good at doing these impromptu live streams. So once I'd finished recording, I thought I should pop in for a bit. So hello to Brenda, hello to Yelda, hello to John Bayliss, hello to Topsy Turvy. Claire says, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the news of the inquest. So we'll definitely be getting to that, Claire, don't worry. Shell says, hi, Chris, hi, Kiko, hi to Shell, hi to Debbie, hi to Paul, hope you're well. I certainly am, Paul, hope you're well. I believe you're in Hereford, I think, if I remember rightly. Carla Ann Berryman says hello to you, hello to Michael, hello to Matthew Hayden, hello to ACL Moss, good to see you. So before I go any further, there's a question from Matthew, but I presume people have seen the news today about the inquest. So I haven't covered that on the channel yet because it only happened today, but there's going to be a coroner's inquest into the original deaths. I don't know too much about this at this point in time. I've been asked a few questions about it, but I'm assuming they're going to look at all of the infants that died in relation to the original court case. Now, this is going to be a very interesting development. We don't know what's going to happen exactly. I do know that I will have Stephanie Davies on to discuss it at some point when it's appropriate. We're just waiting for a certain date. And until then, we'll just have to wait and see. I really don't know an enormous amount about the inquest other than what's been printed, what's been written in the media, which is, there's been a bit, but all it really says is they're going to review the cases. I don't really, I'll just try and keep an open mind and see what happens. It's very difficult to know what will happen with it, but it's obviously an important development. So I'll answer this question first from Matthew. What was the nature of these charges? Hello to Kate from Sydney. It's nice to have someone from Australia as always. Thank you for joining us. So with regard to the nature of these charges, the simple fact is that we can't say with 100% certainty, but we have a certain amount of information that would guide us with regards to this. So the first thing is the majority of these charges were related, well, alleged, ultimately they weren't charged, but the majority of these cases were related to the Countess of Chester. So it must have been around the time of the original indictment. There's a couple from Liverpool Women's Hospital we know are tube extubations, basically. They're just rubbish. What I would say is that if these cases weren't in the original indictment, given that Child K is in the original indictment, and there's literally no evidence for Child K whatsoever. So they must have been pretty weak, and they were never picked up at any stage. So we don't know 100%, but we can say with some confidence, I would say, that these were weak cases. Obviously, they've been thrown out by the Crown Prosecution Service, so they agree with that. But we don't know exactly what the cases are. It's also suspected that they included the third insulin case, in which the infant is clearly suffering with hyperinsulinism. So that should never, I mean, it's completely senseless to try and advance that case. There's just no basis for it. The tube extubation cases are rubbish. And I think, I think they're just trying to dig up anything they possibly can that they could possibly throw at her. In my opinion, obviously there's no transparency, so we don't know for sure. But that's all we know about the charges. We can't know 100% because they just don't reveal all the details. It seems so. Someone suggested, Jenny, I think it was, in fact, suggested that it could be cases that they were looking at originally, because they originally spoke to 28 parents or 28 families, as they described it. And it's possible, given that there were only 17 infants in the original court case, that some of these parents wouldn't play ball originally and then later decided, oh, well, Lucy Letby's guilty. Now we should play ball. So it's possible that it was some of those cases, and that would certainly make sense. But the simple reality is we don't know for sure. But it's very, I can say the tube extubation cases are definitely in there. That's a certainty. And it's very likely, in my opinion, that the third insulin case, sometimes described as child Y for some reason, it's very likely that case is in there, in my view, because the main reason I would say that is Dewi was talking about it. Dewi was saying, "Oh yeah, I think Lucy's done this. I think Lucy's done that in regards to this third insulin case." So it's likely that he was tipped off by the police. It's likely that he knows about it, even though he's now claiming that he doesn't know anything about it in his ridiculous statement. And then the other cases, who knows what they are, because only 2 of them are deaths. So it could just be, oh, this infant collapsed. And they must have lined it up. They must have aligned things so that Lucy was on duty. Otherwise, they'd have big problems. So they must have found cases where Lucy could be said to be on duty for one collapse at some time or stuff like that. It must be extremely weak, because obviously, well, I just don't think there's any so I'll move on to the other question I've been asked, which was I'd love to hear your thoughts on the news of the inquest. So obviously it's good news, broadly speaking. I will say some people have said in the comments, and Mark mentioned this on his stream last night, that if the case had gone to court, it would have been an opportunity for lots of medical evidence to come out in the public domain, and that could have been very powerful, and that could have damaged the prosecution of the original case. And that's a very fair point. But there was just, in my view, there was just no way this was ever going to go to court. I don't think the police really believed that they were legitimate cases, really, deep down, even if they may pretend this on the surface. And consider how weak they must be if Child K is in the original indictment and these cases came afterwards. We know the tube extubation cases from Liverpool are ridiculous. They should never be in a court. So, although I agree with the statement that if all this was ventilated in public, it could have been a big deal. That was just never going to happen. I knew these cases would never go to court. I was absolutely certain. What I thought might happen, or I thought even indeed was likely to happen, was that they would leave it hanging over Lucy's head for a long time. Because the Crown Prosecution Service often does that. It can take a very long time to charge someone. And in actual fact, while people have been saying, why did it take them so long? Actually, this is a pretty quick turnaround for the criminal justice system, which usually moves about as fast as tectonic plates. To actually turn around a multiple infant murder allegation, an attempted murder in 6 months, is quicker than the CPS would usually move. So they must have deemed it to be very weak. But also, I think ultimately they just recognise we're going to get annihilated in court. Whether or not they thought this will weaken the original conviction, I don't know. But typically, the Crown Prosecution Service know it's their job to bring things to court that have a chance of prosecution. It's supposed to be a 75% chance of prosecution. Now, I was asked some questions last night, again, about how many witnesses or experts they had. We don't know this information, but the maximum is 2. Because Mark McDonnell says there's 1 expert that the police have supposedly got. And there's Yoxall from Liverpool. And I doubt they've got any other experts. I think most of these allegations will be based on stuff from the hospital. So it'll be figures from the hospital, people things said at the time, etc., etc. So when the Crown Prosecution Service says, right, we've got 2 experts, Mark McDonnell's made it very clear that he's going to come back at us with 29 experts. And also we know the caliber of these experts. And also they're not stupid. They will have seen everything that we've seen that was in the February press conference, and stuff that's been in the media, stuff that people have been said. And so when they looked at in their defense, and I'm not defending them very much, but in their defense, when they had the original indictment, they may not have been able to assess this properly. But now they've seen the original indictment, assessed, and the medical notes assessed by people of the highest caliber. It's only natural for them to think, hold on a second, we might not have got this right. So I think ultimately they're saying they applied this evidential test, but I think they just know if this case goes to court, we're never going to get a conviction. We're just going to get slaughtered in court. And I'm sure that's the reason that this case never went to court. Just bear with me 1 second. I'm just going to do something. Just hold on. Do apologise for this. It's just something important I need to do. Bear with me 1 second. Hold on. Technology never works. Yeah, so we're going to be joined by a guest this evening. Now, of course, I've never had a guest on the channel, on the podcast, on this thing before. Whatever you call it, live stream. That's the thing. So I just need to arrange this. Just bear with me 1 second. I'm just trying to do this now. Obviously, I don't know what I'm doing, as you probably noticed from previous live streams. It's just a bit of a fiddly process because you have to get this link, and I need to email it. So just bear with me 1 second. Let's see what we've got here. So yes, hopefully this is going to work. I say it's my first time trying to invite someone. So, it's not working, stupid thing. Sorry about this intermission. This is the only way I could work out to do it. I didn't think there was any other way. I don't think there is any other way for me to do it. So John, right, there we go. I think I've done it now. Right, sorry about that. So hopefully that will all work out. So yeah, I think the Crown Prosecution Service just knew that they had no choice. Right, it's actually worked. So there we go. Hi, Jonathan.
Hi, hello.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? That's
I
good.
can, yes, I can. It works
What
better
is
on my mobile than my computer, so that's great.
okay? What a slick process that was. How are you? All right.
I'm very well, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. So I was just giving some initial thoughts on the news from yesterday regarding the Crown Prosecution Service, and all I was saying really was that I just thought the Crown Prosecution Service knew that they were going to be annihilated in court for these cases. So that's all I've really said, and I think they've made these comments about not passing an evidential test, but I think in reality they just knew we can't put this in court. We've got absolutely no chance. They won't have experts, and the defence will have an enormous number of experts. So that's all I was really saying. So with regard to that, what was your reaction to the news?
Absolutely the same as yours, completely the same. I just think that they realised that. I mean, they would have had to have had some credible experts, and they clearly couldn't have done. I just don't think it's possible. I mean, Phil Hammond, many others have been trying hard to find anybody who supports the original convictions and the original evidence, and unless they had some credible evidence, they were just going to be completely annihilated.
Yes,
they just couldn't win anyway. So I think discretion was the better part of valor. And I've just been watching just before you brought me in, but I agree with you. I'm quite surprised they didn't wait for a lot longer before they did this, because there was actually advantage for them to keep her hanging. But in many ways, it's great news that they have done it now, and it sort of opens. It smooths the road to some degree, so that's really good news.
Yeah, yeah. Were you expecting them to keep her hanging? Because I was.
Yeah, I thought they'd give her. I thought it would take a lot longer. I completely agree with you. Everyone said, "Oh, it's taken them." They had the stuff in July. My goodness, it's taken a long time. But actually, 6 months for the Crown Prosecution Service is extremely short, particularly for 11 cases. I mean, that's very fast for them.
Yes, yes, I agree. Are you able to tell us about Thirlwall? Because I've had a few questions about this. So, are you able to share what you know about Thirlwall?
I think I'm very happy to say that I was the person that wrote Thirlwall recently, and I got a reply, which I got it within 90 minutes of sending my email, which was quite surprising. But basically, I firstly said that I realised that my contribution was not going to be official, but it was a personal personal communication with them, and I obviously sort of highlighted that they'd already postponed the findings until Easter, and in view of all the mounting evidence, that clearly they would need to be very, very careful if they did publish the report. And then we heard back that they apparently, due to the gross negligence manslaughter, the attempts by the hospital managers to postpone the publication of the report, that it won't be postponed. But I've since realised the guy who responded to me is a very junior chap in the Thirlwall inquiry. He's a sort of not a high flyer. He's one of the junior people. So he said that it will be published on time, but I remain very sceptical about that.
Okay. So I mean, basically the takeaway was they said they're going to stick to the timetable. That's what they told you when you wrote to them.
Yeah.
I mean, I read Jonathan's letter. It was very, very good. I mean, it said all I can really say is you told them everything they need to know. So I mean, I'm sure they've heard that from other sources, but you couldn't have really made any clearer to them that you can't continue with this. I mean, it's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. They can't be under any illusions about that. I wouldn't think. Who knows? Who knows what they'll do? I mean, it's really hard to predict, isn't it? But they are still insisting in April they will publish recommendations based on this inquiry, even in the climate of what's occurred since then, and even now with this new news from the Crown Prosecution Service. So, just wanted to let people know that, because it's something that people may not know. It's a little bit of a steer on what we maybe can expect. We'll just have to wait and see. So I'm going to read some comments out, and then when we get to a question, we'll we'll deal with that. So let's go a bit further down. So hello to Jay, hello to Vivian, hello to Craig. Thank you for all your work on this. No problem at all. Hi to Madeline. Hi to Matthew again. Hi to CNOR30. So Julia's saying, I've already kind of addressed this, but it'd be interesting to hear your take on it as well. She's saying that these other cases, because people are asking me what were these other cases, and I sort of gave the most informed guess that I can. But Julia's saying these may be cases for which the parents need answers, since we can't expect the consultants to provide them. So do you have any thoughts on that? And what do you think these cases constituted?
Well, I mean, I imagine it like the first sort of cases. It's cases where they feel there is some reason to investigate, but obviously, as you say, the sadness will be that it wouldn't appear that they will be properly investigated. So that in many ways, the parents are left in the worst of all worlds, because the police have abandoned them now and said that they're not going to prosecute, but there isn't people in the background, good people, to properly investigate and give them the answers they need. So, I mean, and it's all down to the parents, that obviously we've not been told who these people are, and their anonymity quite rightly is being preserved, but they have a right to have a proper investigation of the circumstances of the suspected harm to their children, or the death, in 2 cases the deaths of their children. And as it stands, it's entirely up to them how they proceed, and unless they breach their anonymity and actually ask that somebody like Mark McDonald can get some of the experts that he's instructed to look into their cases, then they're not going to get anything out of this. They've just been left with the worst of all worlds, which is appalling, really.
Yeah, I agree. Hi, Chris. Guy Rowland just posted on X that 19 nurses have submitted a formal complaint to the Chief Constable of Cheshire Police. Any thoughts? Yeah, I mean, obviously, I know the people from 19 nurses. I was at the meeting. I think that's known to be the case. They gave me the permission to post some of the talks from an extract on the channel. I obviously support any effort to hold any of these people to account, whether it's the police, whether it's the consultants, whether it's the criminal justice system in general, I suppose. I don't expect that they will ever hear back from the Chief Constable of Cheshire Police, but I don't. One thing I will say, I came in a little bit blind to some of the aspects of this case, but one thing that I can say is that, I mean, I have a pretty low opinion of complaints procedures generally for these big bodies. I just don't. Are they taken seriously? Yeah, I mean. I also am privy to certain information that I can't share, unfortunately, which would indicate to me that the police are very unlikely to take it seriously. But I absolutely welcome any effort to increase pressure on them. How do you feel about the police's role in this, Jonathan?
Well, I think it can't be any harm, really, because I think anything which is sent to them as a complaint has got to be logged, it's got to be kept, and it's got to be it should be actually looked at seriously. And if eventually Lucy is exonerated and all hell is let loose, and there is major criticism of Cheshire Police, then all these previous complaints are going to have to be uncovered. An organisation that has a serious complaint made against it can't hide that complaint. So eventually, it could be very helpful to have these complaints ready when, as it were, the SHIT hits the fan, because hopefully, if you've got some really well formulated complaints, when Lucy's released and people are suddenly saying what on earth happened here, it will just be helpful to have stuff already baked and ready at the time, and then people aren't catching up. We've got stuff already there and can be used immediately.
Yeah,
So I think it could be a good thing.
That's a really good point, because when this is hopefully over, we can say, well, a complaint was made and you didn't really address it in any meaningful way. We'll be able to look back at that, I suppose. I saw a Facebook about this, and I'd estimate the comments were 90% innocent or retrial. I think public opinion has moved a lot since the trial. I think that's not in question, and it's going to get stronger. It's just a case of getting the numbers, so more and more people know, so that there's the public awareness that this is an egregious miscarriage of justice that we all know it to be. If anyone hasn't seen it, Mark McDonnell was interviewed by Jeremy Kyle. Unfortunately, the questions he asked were embarrassingly worded, but Mark did well. Yeah, so I saw that. Did you see that, Jonathan?
Yeah, I did just see it just now, actually. Yeah.
It's just the usual questions of what about the parents? Is Lucy? If you've met Lucy Letby, it was a bit tired. It was a bit of a tired interview, but Mark did that. To be fair, if he doesn't know the answers to those questions by now, I mean, he's been asked all those questions about 20 times by now. So, I mean, I would expect him to handle them with aplomb, which he did. Rangecroft says, have you had to do any rewrites for your book? Yes, I have. I've had to do about 5 drafts. And I've still, although I submit the final draft for the publisher to look at, that will still be rewritten again. So yes, I have, but it's all worth it, so it doesn't matter. Hi Chris, second live chat in 2 days. Yeah, I had an impromptu appearance on Mark's live stream, which was fun. It was nice to speak to everyone. On January the 17th, NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde I've seen this story. Yeah. Admitted that bacteria in the water supply were responsible for a number of child deaths at Queen Elizabeth University Hospital. Will this help Lucy? So I'll let Jonathan answer this one.
I have to say, I haven't really read this in detail. I heard about it last night on the channel. I mean, essentially, of course, it should do and will do, but I'm still mystified why, even at the original trial with the plumber there and the inference that if sort of excrement was coming up through the drains into the neonatal unit, why this wasn't pushed harder at the original trial. I just can't understand it. Because although the plumber was a professional expert, he was giving evidence that feces were coming up through the drains, and of course in a neonatal unit, that's even Dowie Everton's in the Was There Ever a Crime podcast admitted that. I don't understand that, because he was obviously there in the original trial, and he obviously saw the plumber giving the evidence, but he said that he was not aware of this when he was subsequently interviewed. But obviously that's just Dowie, isn't it? We know
you
that.
never know what he's saying, do you really? But I mean, that was one of the very few saying the reference, the thing you're referencing, that the hospital in Wales would have closed it down immediately. It's about the only reliable thing he said in the whole of his rampant commentary, isn't it?
Yeah,
not the only reasonable thing he said. I mean, it's hard to know how he could have attended a court case, and he was there a lot, and not know about one of the central facets of that court case. I mean that seemed pretty dubious. But we know why he didn't know anything about sewage in the hospital, because he specifically said, I don't want to know anything about the hospital. I don't want to see any of the previous reports. I don't want to see, so obviously he doesn't know anything. So why would he? That's because of his own process. Simple as that. Chris is an absolute legend. Thank you. I bet Yoxall and anyone else at Liverpool is relieved, wish they never got involved. He should be. He should be relieved, because if he'd have been called in that court case, that would have stuck to him for the rest of his life. As it is, it's a lot more lower profile for him now, and he can weasel his way out of it quietly. But I think Jonathan will probably have a view on this again, but the consultants have seemingly, some of them have such a high opinion of themselves. He probably still thinks he's right. So that they don't ever seemingly worry about the consequences of being wrong, because they never think they are wrong. But yeah, he should be relieved, because they would have been slaughtered. The prosecution would have been slaughtered in this court case. It would have been an absolute embarrassment. That's why it wasn't referred in my view. It's a cover-up. They don't want to reopen anything with the case where the witnesses get cross-examined properly. I think that's a fair comment. I think, but also, it's not just they don't want the witnesses to be cross-examined. It's the quantity of witnesses and the caliber compared to what they would be up against. So it would be a complete inverse of the original trial, where we saw no defense witnesses for Lucy, and basically it's still just the Evans and Bohin show with a couple of others. But that was imbalanced nevertheless. This would have been the complete opposite. So that would have been critical. I mean, so obviously, Jonathan, I know you said you haven't done loads of criminal cases, but is it common, in your opinion or in your experience, for one side to have a lot of experts and the other to have none, particularly obviously the prosecution?
Well, it's the same. In criminal cases, it does tend to be the imbalance seems to be on the prosecution side. So the prosecution tends to have a lot of experts and the defense has very few, mainly because, one, as we discussed when you interviewed me, it's difficult to get defense experts, and also financially there's very little money to employ them. But in this case, we know that we would have about 20 to 30, if not more, defense experts on Lucy's side, due to the high profile nature of this case. But ironically, they would actually have, I mean, we literally have not been able to find anybody who is able to substantiate the original allegations. So it really would be extraordinary, because you'd have in this case, you'd have a lot of defense experts of exceptionally high caliber against nobody. I genuinely think there would be real difficulties finding anyone who would be prepared to stand up and defend the original allegations against Lucy. I just don't think there's anybody who'd do it. So it would be extraordinary. It'd be so difficult.
It'd have to be a good payday, wouldn't it? If you were going to do that.
It wouldn't be worth a good payday, because you'd be slaughtered and your reputation would be demolished. So even if it was a good payday, nobody would do it. So no, it would be impossible. Yeah,
absolutely. Her lawyers need to make SAR for the details they have got now got on her. So they may do this. I don't know. I can't really say if they will, but I'm sure that everything that needs to be done is being done. What is Yoxall again? So this is William Yoxall, sometimes referred to or often referred to as Bill Yoxall. He's a consultant at, I think it's Liverpool Women's Hospital. I think it's Liverpool Women's, not Arrow Park. I'm pretty sure it's Liverpool Women's Hospital.
Yeah, it is Women's Hospital, yeah.
Yeah, and he's a friend of Breary. There are comments, there's emails between them in the Thirlwell documents, and somehow Breary's managed to get him on side, as he seems to be able to do with anyone. And Yoxall has done some nonsense to do with Liverpool Women's Hospital. And those were two of the cases. And it's the tube extubation cases that were mentioned in the Panorama documentary, that now should just be pulled completely from if it hasn't been already. Hi, Chris. What's your initial feeling regarding the future inquests? So, yes, I started to talk about this a little bit. So did you hear about this story? The Coroners. Have you heard about this today?
Yeah, I did hear about it. Yeah, I think I sent you something on it, didn't I?
Oh yeah, of course you did. Yeah, of course you did. Yeah. So what do you think about it?
Well, I've actually thought about it a lot today, actually, and I thought, I mean, essentially the Coroners have a completely blank page, and they can decide how they're going to investigate this. And in many ways, I mean, I don't know. I've only been thinking about it for a couple of hours, but there's nothing to stop the coroner from going right back from the start for all the cases, because there's not been a proper coroner's inquest for any of the criminal cases, as far as I'm aware. In fact, that's one of the big problems. And then we've now got at least two more cases where children died, and the coroner could literally go from first base and start right from the beginning and do a proper investigation. And of course, that would completely undermine the criminal prosecution, in my opinion, or it should do, and it could do. And the coroner has a lot of power to investigate how they feel fit, and in many ways that could be extremely useful to Lucy, because it gives another opportunity for all the cases to be certainly all it would have to be a case where the baby died. The coroner wouldn't be looking at attempted or near misses, but for all the babies that died. So we got 7 in the original cases and the original trials, and 2 from the recent information. So you've got 9 babies that could be investigated very thoroughly, and in my opinion, that could be a game changer.
Absolutely. So one thing I'd mention is, obviously, as we know, a lot of the allegations in court were in relation to the injection of air. There is no evidence to support this, and there's no way that the coronial process should come to that conclusion. One of the most important signs, we're going to be discussing this with a guest who's coming up soon. I'll talk about that in a second. Is frothy blood in the ventricle of the heart. It's the left ventricle of the heart. If you have a serious air embolism, there's frothy blood. And we know for a fact there wasn't, because there's documents at the thermal inquiry where they say there's no frothy blood present, so it can't be an air embolism. So the coroner should not, on that basis, conclude that it was an air embolism, because they don't have any evidence. One of the key, arguably the key indicator that the coroner would look for is not there. So it will be very interesting to see what happens. I've spoken to Stephanie Davies today. I won't reveal what she said because I haven't got permission, but I'll get her on the channel to discuss it whenever I can. And it's just going to be very interesting to see what happens.
Although it's going to be completely, I mean, it will all be behind closed doors. They have said that, so it won't be open to public scrutiny, will it? That's what they've said.
I don't know. I know very little about the coronial process, so I don't know. I'll take your word for it.
Well, that's what the article said, is that they actually specifically said that it would not be open to the press or the public, which I'm not sure. I think most coroners' courts aren't like any other court, are open to the public, but in this case, because of the sensitivity, it might not be. But that's what it said. But that doesn't stop the coroner doing a proper job. So if the coroner's got anything about them, they should do a really thorough job and get to the bottom of what the likely cause of death was. And clearly, if it wasn't murder, then that should be fed back, and that would be very, very important evidence for the Court of Appeal.
Yeah. Critical, it's potentially critical evidence. You know, it's hard to see how they could support the verdicts that were in court with actual physical evidence. One thing I do think is that it may not be a public process, as you said, but surely Lucy's barrister will be able to acquire this information for her defence. I know it's not something that's going to be discussed publicly, but surely if they say, look, we have a right to see this, they will be allowed to have it, I would assume. What do you think? Well,
I think the outcome of a coroner's court, the verdict of a coroner shouldn't be kept completely secret from the public.
No.
And I can't see that you can justify that, because why would you go bother to do it if the outcome had to be kept entirely confidential? I mean, it couldn't just be for the parents. So I think a lot of it will be down to the discretion of the coroner. But I haven't read it again, but I read it this morning that it said it would be the trial, the coroner's verdict, the coroner's inquest will be entirely confidential, private. So I don't know quite how that's going to pan out, but it's going to be very soon as well. It's going to be February that it's going to start.
Really? Yeah. I didn't have time to take in properly, but yeah, interesting. Yeah, so we won't have to wait long to find out. supposedly the Thirlwell inquiry is going to release its timetable in February as well. So we'll see what happens in the next few weeks. So Mark McDonald says he has 31 experts backing him now. That's what he said on Jeremy Kyle interview. Exactly, slaughtered in court means the Court of Appeal is left with no choice. I can't believe they called the new investigation Project Dewdrop a nod to the expert. Perhaps the inquest will bring out more evidence infections like with Sally Clark's. That's definitely possible. So they've decided not to go there and expose their incompetence, pretty much. I mean, to be fair, this particular referral is not the fault of the Crown Prosecution Service. They have to listen to it. They have no choice. I would be critical of them regarding the original referral, but this second tranche of cases, there's nothing they could do. What live stream last night? I missed it. Anyone got a link? So it was on Mark May's channel. If you go to Mark May's channel, you can watch that at some point. Peter Hitchens has done a good article in the Daily Mail this evening. Didn't know that. Haven't seen that yet, so I'll have to look out for that later. Hi to Lynn. AI tells me under Schedule 1 of the Coroners and Justice Act 2009, if an inquest is resumed after criminal proceedings, its conclusion must be consistent with the outcome of those proceedings. So that's great, isn't it? Let me just read that again. Under Schedule 1 of the Coroners and Justice Act 2009, if an inquest is resumed after criminal proceedings, its conclusion must be consistent with the outcome of those proceedings. So I don't know if that's true or not, but that seems ridiculous, obviously. So it means
it is, isn't it? I mean,
well, it means they wouldn't.
What's the point? What's the point?
Well, it means they wouldn't do a proper job.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not that surprised, but anyway, we'll just have to wait and see. Thank you for that information. The BMJ put the avoidable death toll in English acute hospitals at 20,000 a year, which is interesting. There's some people saying hello to you. Let's just go a bit further down. I thought it was great that the CPS said it was due to failure to meet the threshold rather than it wasn't in the public interest. Yeah. I think they had to do that because they can't say that, alleged murders and alleged attempted murders aren't in the public interest. They obviously would be if they were real. So they couldn't say that. They had no choice. The only thing that surprises me is they've done it so quickly, as we were saying. Someone else is saying the coroner's findings cannot contradict the verdict, even if it is clear there is no malfeasance. So we'll just have to see what happens. But yeah, let's just go a little bit further down. As it only took 6 months, is there something else on the horizon? So what do we think about that? Do we think this is this a kind of a systemic indication that something else, or indicator that something else might be coming soon?
What do you mean by something else?
Well, I think they mean, is the referral coming, for example, from the CCRC to the Court of Appeal, as an example, I think. I
mean, I don't think the CPS would. I don't think they would be considering that. I think they act completely independently. I don't think they'll be considering that myself. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you have more experience than me, so that's reasonable. Let's go a bit further down. Hello to Gwyneth. Nice to have you here. Someone has suggested perhaps the coroner could honour the verdict but stress extreme caution. That's possible. Again, we'll just have to wait and see. It just seemed pretty ridiculous.
I mean, the coroner has to have credibility. I mean, they've got to give a verdict which reflects what the truth is. So I mean, they can't be that shoehorned by the original outcome of the trial. I mean, they've got to give an honest appraisal of their findings. Otherwise, what's the point?
You would think so, but we'll just. I don't know. I mean, I didn't know this ruling, but it says here the coroner can say that as an add-on, but she still has to put unlawful killing as a cause of death. So someone says here. Don't know. We just have to wait and see. Hi to Reflective. Hi to Stuart. Just going a little bit further down. If the Thirlwell inquiry isn't highly critical of the service in the unit, then I'd be astonished. That would help save the inquiry. So, the thing is, they're kind of hamstrung by the terms of reference of the inquiry. So, it's really hard to know what they're going to say. What do you think they'll say?
Well, if I was Lady, I've been thinking about it. If I was Lady Thirlwell, obviously she is hamstrung by the terms of the inquiry, but she could almost completely ignore Lucy Letby entirely in her judgment. I mean, she could. I must admit, I just couldn't face the Thirlwell inquiry because I just couldn't abide seeing Lucy being torn to pieces, which she was by some people, but. A lot of great stuff has come out of the Thirlwell inquiry, and a lot of incredibly strong evidence that proves her innocence. So if I was Lady Thirlwell, I would just be very, very cautious about pushing the Lucy Letby. If she was very skillful, she could write a very, very comprehensive report which didn't really infer that Lucy Letby had actually murdered any babies, and in fact she could if she wouldn't breach the terms of the inquiry, but she could actually bring some very useful findings that were uncovered anyway, and a lot of stuff that should have come out in the trial that wasn't even addressed came out in the Thirlwell inquiry. And if she had something about her, she would concentrate on that, in my opinion, anyway.
Yes. Yeah. I don't see any, personally, I don't see any conceivable way that they can report recommendations at this point in time. I don't know how they're going to get out of it, but I mean, the recommendations are all related to the assumption that Lucy's guilty, which we know is not true. And even Lady Thirlwell has had to soften her position significantly from the beginning of that inquiry when she made these kind of bullish statements, you could describe them as. So yeah, we'll just have to wait. Again, it's very difficult to predict Thirlwell, indeed.
But I mean, could she not? I mean, at the beginning of Thirlwell, we all thought that she would say, if you have any suspicions whatsoever, get the police in really early. But actually, there's nothing to stop her saying, if you have suspicions that something has gone wrong, get together an expert panel of outstanding experts outside the criminal justice system, get their opinion first, and only if they have real conviction that there is a criminal intent in the root cause of this, that you should take things further. I mean, is that not the way to? That's what we all want, and we want.
Yeah, well, that would be logical, would it not?
I mean, there's nothing to stop her doing that, is there? I mean,
no, there isn't. There isn't. No, absolutely not. Just her own brain. It's the only thing, is there really? Yeah. There's nothing in the terms of the inquiry to stop her.
Yeah,
nothing at all. And of
course,
in
fact, if she was really good, she could, because we all want to stop this adversarial court process, and this could be if she really took her opportunity, she should say, it's quite obvious from this trial that the adversarial system doesn't work. And she wouldn't need to say whether or not she considered Lucy Letby to be guilty or innocent. She could just say a much better way would be to get a group of experts together and to try and we all know now, and I'm certain that using juries for very complex medical criminal trials just doesn't work, because I mean, as I said, I sat in the second trial, and I went on a day when I knew there wasn't going to be a lot going on because I wanted to get into the courtroom. And I sat through a 90-minute explanation about how a neonatal incubator works to the jury. And even I was sitting there sort of struggling to understand what was being said. And therefore, I just feel so strongly that it's just too big a responsibility to give juries the task of judging criminal trials in very, very complex medical issues, because, and this is where actually at the very least a judicial input would be good, because in a judge-led trial they have to give a written summation of their verdict, which of course in the jury trial they don't. The jury just reaches its conclusion, and the judge doesn't have to have anything to do with it at all. But far better would be that very complex medical criminal trials are looked at by a panel of experts, and their findings are used as the basis by which you then take things further. And you don't even get anywhere near a courtroom until you've got a panel of very eminent experts to look it all through. But the way the criminal justice system is at the moment, you do just get each side getting their potentially very partisan experts to sort of fight it out confrontationally in court, which just serves no purpose. Certainly serves no useful purpose in improving medical care or getting good outcomes from the trial. It just serves no purpose at all in any event.
I mean, we mentioned the sewage earlier. So one of the most surreal and ridiculous things that we haven't talked about that much, and I haven't exposed too much, is it was the requirement of the prosecution to try to say, oh, it doesn't matter, there was sewage on the unit. So they had to go and cross-examine the plumber and try and downplay it and say, oh, but what days was the sewage coming out of the sink? It can't have been, and stuff like that. They have to try and say, oh, it's fine. It's fine for there to be sewage on a neonatal unit. It's not a problem, or say, oh, well, it wasn't really there, or it was, it was coming out of one of the bits of the plug hole, but the other bits were fine. They've got to try and minimize.
I know.
When really the prosecution should just go, yeah, fair enough. This,
exactly.
But they can't, because that's not what they're supposed to do.
Well, it just shows completely that it just undermines the whole process, doesn't it? I mean, if the prosecution are justifying the completely unjustifiable, why waste time? I mean, it's just utterly absurd.
Yeah,
undermines the total. It undermines criminal court proceedings entirely if you're left that you have to do that.
Yeah, and they did. I mean, that's what they're supposed to do. Because it's a adversarial system, so they're supposed to attack every witness or attack every argument, even if it's blindingly obviously correct. They still have to put up some sort of opposition. So I'll just read a bit. So let me mention something while I remember. I must say, let me mention a couple of things. So firstly, Jonathan, please let me know if you have to leave, because we didn't have time to discuss this properly before.
No, that's fine. I'm fine.
So,
fine. Thank you.
So we usually go on for about 3 hours, and then my voice is gone. Then I probably earlier in the stream, I just knocked my water all over the place. So I may go and get some more water at some point. But we usually speak for 3 hours. But if you need to leave at any point, please let me know. The second thing is I've got several new guests coming onto the channel soon. So I've got 2 doctors and a professor coming on, and I'm in negotiations with another professor. Hopefully that's going to happen as well. So I've been recording loads of interviews. I will be recording loads more over the coming days. I'm doing a big period of interviewing now, and then I'll steadily put them onto the channel in the next couple of months. Because as someone asked me earlier, have you done rewrites? I still actually will at some point have to do a lot of work on my book still, even though I've handed in the final version. So I'm trying to get as much done now as I can, so that I can keep the channel going and keep providing content for you to watch that's interesting, and also take a bit of time off to concentrate on finishing my book off. Let's read down the comments a bit further. I agree with you about that, your comment on the police, Denise, but I won't read it out. I've said enough about them already, so but I agree with you. Chris, could the coroner call witnesses to the coroner's court, perhaps investigate the medical procedures that several doctors performed on the babies? I have no idea. Do you know, Jonathan?
Yeah, if there's any concerns, they should. That's what a coroner's inquest is all about. So getting to the truth of how the babies died is the whole remit. That's the whole purpose of a coroner's inquest. So they have a duty to do that. They should do that. So yeah.
Cool. That's good. That's good. My take is, why have inquests when the deaths are supposed to be established and Lucy's in prison? I think it's a political maneuver to exonerate the establishment and the CPS and judicial system, etc. And that's quite possible. It's quite possibly a political move. We're just going to have to wait and see what happens. In the long run, if there isn't a proper coronial process, and if they have to go along with the verdict, it's not going to damage Lucy too much. But we're just going to have to wait and see, because I've never experienced this before. I've never once paid any attention to what a coroner has done in my life. So I don't know anything about it. I mean, I know nothing about the coronial process other than what Stephanie's told me. And, she will have some thoughts on it at some point soon when I have her on. We're just waiting for a few other things to occur. So regarding the Jeremy Kyle show, someone saying, I wonder if Jeremy Kyle has suspicions Lucy may not be guilty. I think he probably does. I think most people do. I think, he's required to perform a certain media role, but I think he probably very likely does have suspicions at the very least. So Claire says, I wonder if they will drop Operation Duet now too. No, they won't. I can predict this quite easily. They will now hide behind Operation Duet, because they can't hide behind their ongoing investigation anymore. So now they'll say, oh, there's an ongoing investigation of the executives. We can't comment until that's concluded. And they will never pass that to the Crown Prosecution Service, ever. Because as soon as they did that, the Crown Prosecution Service will reject it, and then they've got nothing to hide behind. So they will now shamelessly hide behind Operation Duet for years to come, until Lucy is exonerated. That's just my prediction. But if I'm wrong, you can let me know. But I bet you that's what happens. Complaint processes seem to be a little more than fishing exercises by bodies. Yeah. I mean, I don't have a high opinion of complaints procedures. I can't recall too many examples of things being resolved by complaints procedures. But, I mean, Jonathan's rightly said, at least it'll be on the record. And in the future, we can look back at it. So in that regard, it may be useful. It was a very measured talk from Mark to Kyle. Very good. Yeah, I agree. I've had to make many complaints. They are all whitewashes. Difficult to disagree, Gwyneth. Very difficult to disagree. Who wrote the papers? This is a question. Who wrote the papers for Cheshire that were dismissed? Not Dewi, obviously. Was it Sandy Bohin? So Dewi has claimed that he knows nothing about the cases. That's completely untrue, because he's already given his opinion on them numerous times, and the specifics of them and specific cases. So that's just what he said was untrue. But I and someone asked me this yesterday, do you think Sandy Bohin is involved? And I obviously don't know, but I'm very doubtful that she is, because she's not quite as tainted as Dr. Evans, but her obviously she's left Guernsey under a bit of a storm, and she's intrinsically associated with the first trial that's now tainted as well. And she's not really the highest caliber neonatologist. She's been described by some as a card-carrying neonatologist who doesn't really work in a proper neonatal unit. And she says, I go and update my practices once a year. We have no reason to disbelieve that, but it's not the same, Jonathan will know, as being actively involved in practice. So I think it's very unlikely that Sandy Bohin was involved with this. But what do you think, Jonathan? Do you agree or disagree?
Well, absolutely. I mean, you've got to understand that Sandy Bohin works on Guernsey. Guernsey has a population of about 80,000. if what her main job as a neonatologist on Guernsey is, if there is any suspicion whatsoever that there could be any sort of risk to a baby, her main job is to get the baby off the island to a proper neonatal unit. The only babies they see on Guernsey, and I worked on Jersey for about 3 months after I qualified as a GP, and basically you only keep the babies who are completely stable, absolutely no problem at all. And if there's any concerns whatsoever, you move them to the mainland. So she's not a neonatologist that even is working in a typical unit. She's working in a very, very unusual unit where she's only dealing with the lowest risk babies. So she's not a high caliber, high flying neonatologist by any stretch of the imagination, and hence that's why she had enough time to come and be involved in a 10-month trial. I mean, that's the reason. So,
yeah, absolutely. One thing I'll mention to people to contextualize this is I read some comments from people that live on Guernsey, and one comment I read was the person saying, you have to understand, if we need medical care, we've got no options. We just have to go with what exists. There aren't any other hospitals. So, it's literally like if you live on Guernsey, you either go take your baby privately to somewhere on the mainland somehow, or you go to the Guernsey hospital. That's it. As far as according to this comment I read. So yeah, I mean, I think it's very unlikely to be Sandy Bohin, but I don't know for sure. Good evening, Chris. Great news yesterday for Lucy. Absolutely. It was very good news. Surprising, but good news. Someone talking about Bohin being under scrutiny. Coroners in a time dilemma. Worst time to be taking sides. Adults in the room or the bird. Amicus brief. Has he postponed the inquest? So we're just going to have to wait and see what the coroners do. I'm not experienced in this at all. I didn't know that they had to go with the verdict. That really begs the question of what the point is. We're just going to have to wait and see what is said. And then, if we have to criticize it, then we can. There's been much criticism of the police's statement, rightly so, highly unusual. I mean, they obviously they're running scared. They're running scared. That's why they've written this statement. But they would have been much better advised to either say absolutely nothing or say we respect. They could have just said we respect. Their statement could literally have been we respect the decision of the Crown Prosecution Service. If they want to tack on something about we're supporting the families in the aftermath of this or something like that, they can. There was no need for them to say anything else. They're just defending themselves because they know this reflects on their crappy investigation that they did on the first load of cases, and they know those cases are at best in doubt. Obviously, realistically, they were just completely wrong in their original investigation. So there you go. But what did you? I mean, let me ask you what you made of the police's statement. I mean, I can't imagine it's any different from me, but
I was just thinking when you were saying that, I just absolutely agree exactly with what you said. They should have, if they're going to say anything, just say something very, very short, and justifying it just puts them deeper and deeper into trouble. I mean, it creates more questions than it answers, and in any situation where you're creating more questions than you're answering, then you're on the wrong side.
Yeah. Especially as they can't release any of the details.
Yeah.
So they can't start saying, "Oh, here's why we thought it was a really strong case." So, I just think they're embarrassing. I think they're embarrassing. The fact that they, as I've highlighted numerous times, and I'll continue to highlight this, they've just stopped doing their Twitter account, which they're supposed to tell people in Cheshire, oh, there was an accident recently, or this has happened, or that's happened. And they just stopped doing it because they know they'll be inundated with criticism. Evening to Chariots of Wire. Nice to hear from you. There was a nice commentary from the Professor chap on YouTube about this classic English accent beard. What's his name? I've forgotten his name, but I know who you mean. I haven't had time to watch his piece yet, but I did get recommended it on YouTube. Is it Wilson? Is his name Wilson? It's not David. It's not the David Wilson that we don't have a high opinion of. I think his surname is Wilson, if I remember rightly. But I know who you mean. Dowie lost his plate spinning powers, and that couldn't pass without comment, could it? No. I mean, he's just a ridiculous figure. I mean, he seems to have forgot he's supposed to have made his final comment. That's why I said in the video, it's his final comment. He threatened, I'm not going to talk about this anymore. But because every single comment makes him look worse and worse and worse, and every single piece of news makes him look worse, he can't keep his mouth shut, can he? Except when I send him an email, which he ignores. So he never answered any of my emails or when I've written to him, but I will try again. He will have the right to reply to my book. The publisher will write to him, so he'll be given 4 opportunities. He will have had 4 opportunities to respond. So we'll see what he says, if anything. Just to Carl, Carl has mentioned some people who will be watching with gritted teeth. So I don't mention names, but yes, I take your point. I think Dewey's a bit demented by now. I don't know. I think he's compos mentis. I know a lot of people think this, but I just think he's compos mentis and he knows how much trouble he's in. Someone says the coroner could also postpone the inquest until the CCRC decides what to do next, apparently. So that's interesting. So you might have a view on this. So I don't even know what this means. So hopefully you will know. But it says get a de Brussel on as a prosecution expert. Oh no, sorry. Right, I understand. Yeah, I know who you're referring to. Yeah. We can't have her on, unfortunately. I don't like to make reference to people that are pushing the guilty narrative because, I don't pay any attention to them. I know they sometimes say stuff about me because occasionally someone will tell me, or I get copied into these. It's a bit weird. I'll get copied in something on Twitter and there'll be like 100 comments and they're just discussing me, but I don't read it or pay any attention. I don't really care. I just do my work and they can do whatever they want. Mostly murders prosecuted are guilty, so defense experts are often giving an aberrant opinion, often very dodgy evidence. That's a fair comment. It should be strong evidence. If someone is in court for murder, it should be strong evidence. And so, as you rightly say, the defense are sometimes taking a controversial position. So here's a question, definitely a question for you, Jonathan. So sorry I came in late and would like to ask, could anyone tell me who Jonathan Moore is, please? So no one could answer that better than you, Jonathan, I feel.
Well, I'm a GP expert witness, and I sort of got more and more involved in the case. And this year I've fortunately joined a group whom Chris is a member, and we're in constant contact with each other. So I'm somebody who's I attended the second trial of Lucy Letby in person. Managed to actually get into the main courtroom, and I've been interviewed by Chris, and I'm quite vocal, and I've been on Mark Mays's live streams in the early days when he was starting out. So I'm very honoured to have been asked by Chris to come on tonight, and it's always a great pleasure to do anything with Chris. It's fantastic.
Thank you. Just tell us a little bit more about your medical legal background, because you've worked on a very large number of cases.
Yeah, so I'm a GP expert witness, and I just do civil cases. I've never been involved in criminal cases, which are very, very different. And if you want to watch our interview, I explain all that in detail. But I love my role as an expert witness because, basically, if you do it properly, you're sent all the information and you just read it completely independently. It doesn't matter who's instructing you. So, for example, in the last 2 weeks, I had a case where a GP, there was a patient who was very, very high risk, a child. I'm not going to go into anything that breaches confidentiality or anything, but the parents rang the GP and asked the GP to assess the patient, and basically the GP, after this case was brought, the GP came back and said, "Oh, I did absolutely everything," and was very robust in their defence. But what we had was the telephone transcript of exactly what was said on the telephone, and it was quite obvious that the assessment was completely inadequate. So I'm the expert witness, and although I'm being instructed by the defence, I can say quite categorically, no, this was a completely inadequate. Oh, and by the way, I mean, sadly, the patient died as a result. The patient had a severe pneumonia and died. So I can say very early on in the case, look, this is indefensible, and the defence will get the case settled, and that's good. So despite the fact that I was approached by the defence, I looked at the case completely independently and came to my conclusion. Now, by contrast, I was sent another defendant case about a missed appendicitis, and the claimant had been very, very. The claimant was very robust that this GP had acted very poorly, but actually, when you looked at the case, the patient amazingly managed to come and see the GP within 1.5 hours of the onset of the symptoms. So I was able to put up a very good defence for the patient, sorry, for the GP, and say, well, quite clearly this was far too early. It was not possible to make a diagnosis just an hour or two after the onset. Now, obviously, at the time, the GP gave very good advice and said, come back if it's no better, and gave very safe and entirely justifiable assessment. And in that case, I'm very happy to defend the GP. So as an expert witness, you're in a wonderful, wonderful situation, because you can just look absolutely impartially and totally independently at each case and give your opinion. And the beauty of it is that eventually you can come up against experts who are probably not as... Ideally, if you do a good job, both experts should come up with the same opinion if you're both doing your job properly, and only if I come up against other experts who really aren't doing their job properly, and I do come across them, but then we never get to trial. I've only been to trial once in 23 years, but we, as I said in Chris's interview, we have something called an experts meeting, which actually happened in the Lucy Letby case as well. They had an experts meeting, which again discuss it in the interview, and at that meeting, you can usually resolve the case, because you simply put forward much better evidence than the other expert will be able to put forward, and the barristers and the lawyers involved will understand and accept your side rather than the other side.
Yeah. So I mean, it's interesting. I think what you should add. I don't want to go over everything we discussed in the interview again, but I do think you should say now. Also, I need to get some water. And I know this you can answer this question. I'll get some water. I'll come back.
Okay.
Because I just threw my last water all over the place. We've heard so many opinions on Dr. Evans, but I know that when you saw Dr. Evans, that was an immediate red flag for you in this case.
Yeah.
So I just would like, while I just go off and get some water, just explain why you were so concerned about Dr. Evans when you first encountered him, and why that was such a big red flag. And I'll be back for viewers in just 2 minutes.
Well, as I said in my original interview, I mean, like everybody else, I didn't really follow the case at all until the verdict came out. And when the verdict did come out, like everyone else, it seemed sort of open and shut case that Lucy was clearly the most hideous child murderer in the history of mankind. And my view changed completely during a Good Morning Britain interview with Susanna Reid and Richard Madeley, and when Dowie Evans was being interviewed. And I've been an expert witness for 23 years. I know how expert witnesses work. I know how expert witnesses should behave. And I was absolutely shocked by Dowie Evans and the way he clearly was just so... He was so partisan, and he clearly was so opinionated. I mean, as an expert, you should be absolutely open-minded and assess everything as clearly as you possibly can. And I was just completely shocked at the way he came across, and the way he seemed to, again, just the way he said that there was no other possible explanation. And that was really the very beginning as to why I started to look at the case. And although there was an information ban in tact at the time because of the second the upcoming second case, there was a lot of information available. And as I looked more and more, I thought this is completely unsafe, this conviction, and there's quite a lot of information about the court case as well. Another channel was covering at the time, which has now gone very quiet. Can I say crime scene to courtroom? Am I allowed to?
It is kind of the persona non grata, but yeah, you can say that.
I did actually look again since the Lucy Letby case. He's gone completely quiet on that now, but he's not been doing very much else since. So again, really? That seems to have been his high water. But the sad thing about him was that when he started, he seemed to be very independent and he just presented the transcripts, and I had a lot of respect for him. It was only when he then became incredibly sort of partisan and said, well, clearly she is guilty and these are the reasons, and again he just lost all credibility, because actually all his reasons just didn't stand up to any scrutiny. And well, I don't want to slag him off, but I mean, you know, he's not legally qualified, he's not medically qualified, you know, he's a YouTuber who wanted to get into crime. And you know, I thought to myself, I actually cried again. He's never contacted me back. I found his email address, and I sort of very respectfully sort of challenged him on some of the things he'd said, and he never came back to me. But I just was left thinking, well, if you're not medically qualified, you're not legally qualified. Because I mean, you don't have to be. I'm an expert witness, but I did a 3-year master's degree in medical law, so I've got a legal background as well as a medical background. And so I thought, well, I don't think you should be saying what you're saying and then not being willing to be challenged by somebody who clearly doesn't understand what they're talking about. So again, that's really, I mean, it just gradually, as I looked into the case more and more through the sort of autumn of 2023, it just became more and more obvious that this was an absolute, totally and completely unsafe conviction. And that's really how I just gradually got more and more involved in Lucy's case.
So, I mean, talking about this gentleman, you must be very careful in any field if you're going to start making assertions in an area you don't know nothing about, that you know nothing about. So, I've always been very careful to try and get if I want to assert something, I want it to have it backed up by someone who does know what they're talking about, and and I knew that I needed to do that from day one. But I've obviously learned an enormous amount over the last 2.5 years, or however long it is. It seems like 10 years ago that I started to, but it wasn't 10 years ago. It was a bit more than 2 years ago, I think. So Lucy would have been convicted in August 2023.
18th of August 2023. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's 2 years and 5 months since I've begun to. It will be the 2 months and 5-year anniversary in 2 days. It's the 21st of January today. So I learned an enormous amount. I'll tell you a little story. This amusing story for viewers as well. One of the weirdest things for me that I did recently was when I had to read the book back to present it to the publisher. So I was reading stuff back, a quote from Michelle Warden. So it was really weird because when I first met Michelle, I didn't know her. I'd just seen her on TV, and now I know her quite well. And I remember, I'm asking her questions initially from a very raw position. Obviously I'd already knew I had a good level of knowledge and a good level of research, but over the last 18 months to 2 years, I've learned an enormous amount. So I was thinking about, how I felt when I first met her and I didn't know her, and she was so much more knowledgeable than me. And then all these things are now second nature to me. It was just very strange. But it was interesting, and it shows you the journey you have to go on to be able to speak authoritatively about something of this complexity. And unfortunately, the gentleman that we've referred to, I have nothing against him personally, and I really don't like to bash him, because it must be very difficult for him that he's taken a really strong public position on something and he's wrong. That must be a really, really hard thing to have to deal with. And I do feel a little bit sorry for him in that regard. But if you're going to come down hard on something, you've got to make sure you know what you're talking about. Otherwise, you're prone to making massive mistakes. And I think a lot of people in this case got taken in by the prosecution. I think a lot of seasoned journalists who do court reporting all the time, again, we won't mention their names, we mention them often enough. I think they got taken in by the prosecution, which is their job after all. But whereas that wouldn't happen to you, because you've got a fairly not unique but unusual position of being medically and legally qualified and experienced. So you know all the prosecutors' tricks, and you know the kind of things they do. And if someone says something medically that is poorly founded, you know. I mean, come on, this is like, as an example, in that you obviously attended the retrial. Now, the retrial is farcical, utterly farcical. But statements that were made in the retrial, such as, oh, well, the only explanation for this is that Lucy Letby had pulled the tube out. It couldn't possibly have come out any other way. Now, we all know that is utterly ridiculous. But a layperson doesn't necessarily know that. And they've got a doctor telling them that it is the case.
Yeah.
So
that's why it's so dangerous when you haven't got anyone to sort of contradict that. And that's why defense experts are absolutely critical in any situation. And the fact that in criminal trials, there's often, I think in the Colin Campbell, there were 10 experts on the prosecution side, and there were 2 experts on his side. Lucy Letby was similarly, she had very few, and she didn't have an insulin expert, for example. And that was why she had to admit in court that if that's what the evidence was, then she'd have to accept it, because she didn't have anyone to contradict it. So it's absolutely critical that you always have if there's one you must have equal numbers of experts on each side. So if there's one expert, they've always got to be countered with another expert, because otherwise you just don't have a chance. If it's uncounted and it's in court and it's in front of a jury, then the jury are going to be convinced by the person who's presenting to them. They're not going to be, and a barrister's never going to be allowed to be. Even if a barrister comes across convincingly, the judge is going to say that it's not right for the jury to accept the barrister's opinion, because the barrister's going to be biased. So it has to come from an expert. And if you don't have an expert, you're sunk.
Yes, absolutely. So the question here: should the coroner examine deaths that Lucy was not charged with as well, and compare them to the ones Lucy was charged with, to make a thorough scientific assessment? So I don't know what the coroner has been asked to do. We don't know. I personally don't know which deaths the coroner has been asked to examine, but I think that Jonathan will probably contradict this in a second when he gives his answer. But I think my thoughts would be the coroner is just there to examine the cause of death. So the coroner if it's particularly relevant, then yes, but really the coroner should just look at the evidence and make an evidential-based decision. What do you think, Jonathan?
Well, it's more fundamental than that, because essentially it's down to the coroner to decide whether or not something should be examined. So, for example, as a GP, I mean, obviously, if there's somebody who's got cancer and has been very unwell for many months, and they're an expected death, then you would not report that to the coroner. But as a GP, I have a duty to any possibly unexpected death. I must report that to the coroner's officer, and then I would say in about 80 to 90% of the time, the coroner will come back to me and look at the evidence. So I have to truthfully explain the circumstances of the death, and then the coroner has to come back and say whether they think it's worth investigating. And in most of the cases, they don't need to. So in some of the baby deaths in the Cancer Chester Hospital, if there was an obvious reason why the baby died, or there's no suspicious circumstances, then the coroner is not going to get involved. The coroner is only really going to get involved if there is some it's not clear what the cause of death was, because that's really the duty of the coroner, to investigate why somebody died if it's not obvious.
Yeah, and usually, and we've heard from Stephanie saying she didn't see any reason for malfeasance. She thought these were natural deaths.
Yeah.
And it's only child O, where there were, to use her phrase, missing jigsaw pieces. She highlighted these to the police, and the police put 2 and 2 together and made a lot more than 4. And that's a significant part of this reason. According to the police, that's a significant part of the reason why they took the case forward. Although I'm a little bit, although they've told Stephanie that, I don't know how true that is, because it seems to me they just let the consultants walk in there and tell them anything, and that was the primary reason. But we don't really know. The police have said all kinds of things. So but yeah, it's interesting to hear that view. So here's another question: will the consultants who started this be held to account? So I offered an opinion on. Let's hear Jonathan's opinion first this time, and then I'll give you my opinion.
I think it all depends on the circumstances of the exoneration. I think they should be, because I think they've clearly the way they've gone about everything has been, well, I'll hold back a little bit, but in my opinion they should. But whether or not the police or I mean, there certainly is likely to be civil claims, because there's no doubt that the Thirlwell inquiry has undoubtedly shown that there was evidence of clinical negligence in some of the cases. So whether or not that's taken forward, I don't know. But I think it'll all depend on the circumstances when everything is finally comes to fruition. Really, that's my opinion.
Yeah. So my view is that when Lucy's exonerated, this will be enormous news. This will dominate the news cycle on that day. It will carry on in the news cycle for days to come. You'll still be hearing about it weeks later. There'll have to be inquiries. There'll have to be a major inquiry into what went wrong. There'll have to be a major inquiry into why the Thirlwell inquiry was so ineffective and so useless. There'll have to be all manner of, it will go up to the highest levels of government, no doubt. And once that happens, although the consultants are high-ranking people, they're being outranked quite significantly by what is happening. So if they think they're just going to say, "Oh, whoops, sorry, we made a terrible mistake. Never mind, we'll just go back to doing our job now," that's just not going to happen. They will face scrutiny. And I voiced this opinion yesterday on Mark's stream, and I spoke to someone today who corroborated that view and said exactly the same thing. So they will face scrutiny. Whether they would face the sort of punishment that some of you might like to see is more doubtful and more open to debate. But they won't be able to just walk away and say, "Whoops, never mind. What a cock up. Oh well, I'll just go back to being a paediatrician now." That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
They're going to face serious scrutiny.
But I agree with you. The reverberations of this case are going to absolutely, because the implications for the NHS are absolutely extraordinary. That a nurse doing her job properly, being over diligent, doing extra shifts, always being there when babies died, and then being accused of murder, that's going to be, and the fact that she was clearly scapegoated by the consultants that's just going to have massive repercussions for the NHS. And then, of course, the criminal justice system, the way in which she was investigated, the way. So the implications for the NHS and the implications for the criminal justice systems are going to be so great that I agree with you. Probably the consequences for the individual consultants are going to be completely lost in it all. But no, I think you're absolutely right. It is going to be the biggest miscarriage of justice, because I mean, okay, the post office was very, very bad, and obviously, the system should have been picked up earlier, and they shouldn't have. But the NHS is so sacred, and for a nurse to be sort of scapegoated in the way that Lucy has been, will be absolutely gigantic, and we'll have that's one of the reasons I'm just so completely obsessed with this case is because I can just see the enormity of the eventual consequences that it'll create. And I want to be involved because I've been trying in the background. I've been involved in various things to try and sort of make people more accountable, to try and change the negligence system so that something good, if something goes wrong and somebody's sued, that it's not just a sort of matter of money, that it actually practices change, people learn lessons, good comes from mistakes. And I've been involved as far back as 2009. I was involved in a movement trying to make these changes. But in fact, since 2009, it's got 10 times worse than it was then. And we've made no progress forward. We've just gone backwards. And I just hope that Lucy Letby could be the final dynamite that finally changes the system. That's my overriding hope.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it will be it won't be possible to just brush this under the carpet when it happens, obviously. We'll just have to, I haven't even really thought about it. I just know that, I will probably have, I have a small platform and a small voice now, I suppose, but I guess that my platform and voice is going to get a bit bigger, and I will use it wherever I can in the future. But I've said previously, this will be one of the most important things that's ever happened in British history. And that sounds like a strong statement, but I don't think it is. I think the only things that will be bigger are things like a world war or, Brexit, or, really big systemic things that we talk about for months and years afterwards. But we will talk about this for centuries. We still talk about the Birmingham Six. That was 50 years ago. That was when the actual bombings occurred, was 50 years ago. And we still talk about it. And I have no doubt this will go on for hundreds of years. In terms of whether it's the biggest miscarriage of justice, so there's various ways you could look at it. But if you imagine, if you had a device that was like a Geiger counter or anything that measures the strength of something, and you could measure how wrong is this process, like how on a level, in terms of what our idea of what justice is, about how wrong it is, and about how severely the person has been affected, and about how little they deserved that treatment, it would be at the top of that scale. I doubt you could find worse circumstances where it's more egregious, where the person has suffered more in the most unjustified circumstances. It's so high profile. So I think in that sense, it's definitely the biggest. It'll be the most high profile, certainly. Of course, in the post office inquiry, a lot of people are affected, but I'm not in any way trivializing that because it was awful, but less serious sentences, of course. Lucy's been given the most crushing, brutal sentence. And for that to be completely wrong, and not only for it to be completely wrong, but for it to affect someone who is, the best among us, really. One of the best people you could hope to meet in terms of her values and what she's done with her life, and for her life to be destroyed is just unspeakable. It's absolutely unspeakable.
It's the contrast, isn't it? Here is a girl who was clearly absolutely dedicated to wanting to become a paediatric nurse from childhood, put all her efforts into it. She worked incredibly hard, was really diligent, was really ambitious, did extra qualifications, really wanted to be the best possible neonatal nurse. And instead, she's been portrayed as the worst child killer in UK history, only the fourth woman in history to have a full-term life sentence. The contrast could not be worse. And the personal impact that must have had on her I feel sick to the core when I think about it. And of course, that's only a tiny fraction of what it must be like for her personally. So that's again, that's the reason it is just so heinous. And that's why somebody like me, people say to me, you're absolutely obsessed and you're over passionate about it. But I think it is something, sometimes in life, just a single case can magnify a whole institutional. I mean, I can't even find the right word, but the enormity of something can be portrayed in one single person. And this, I think, is the best example ever, where both the NHS and the police and the civil justice system, the criminal justice system, are the worst of every. Worst in both organisations is portrayed in this one single case, and it's extraordinary, really. And poor Lucy is the person who's had to go through it. But I've written to her in jail, and I've said, you know, although it's horrendous for you now, you will do more good in your life than anybody else will ever do. And I've given her that encouragement, and I just hope that. And I've been very. I don't know if people saw the Star on Sunday. It was front page of the Star where it said that Lucy Letby is you know, she does, according to the Star, that she does realise that people are behind her, and she is confident, and she is upbeat, and that's really wonderful to hear. Fantastic. Obviously, we can't be sure of anything, but the fact that it was there, and in fact it showed that she is saying to people that she thinks she's going to be exonerated, is just brilliant news.
Yeah, absolutely. So, of course, I've interviewed Michael O'Brien on this channel and Tom Hayes recently. Michael was wrongly convicted of murder, and he suffered a lot, and he had his young life completely taken away because he was in prison at 19, didn't come out till 30. Oh, no, so I think he was in prison at 21, but the charges started at 19. And came out 32. I think that's correct. So awful, but he has managed to make a lot of his life and has done some great things. And, you know, I know Lucy will. I'm sure she will. So it is nice to hear that she's dealing with this reality, this horrible reality that's been thrust upon her. So there's a comment here from my friend ACL Moss, who says that the Coroners thing is open to public and press. It was confirmed today by Clearsea. So,
oh right,
yeah. So I obviously don't know anything about that. I'll take her word for it. Clearsea's always on the ball with everything. So,
I mean, I'm just going from that article that I sent you. That's what it said. But I don't see why. I mean, I don't see why it should be. Although it may be that if the parents wanted an anonymity, that they could be given it. That would be possible, but I don't know. A coroner's court should be a public domain, so it should be open to the public and the press. It should be in normal circumstances. It is.
So Stephanie's here.
So wow!
Stephanie's commented, Warrington Council have today confirmed that the inquest will be open. It's just the PIR that is closed. In February, it's just the inquest being opened, not full hearings. So she will be able to tell us much more about this in the days and weeks to come. I mean, I know very little, as I said, about the coronial process, and literally everything I know came from Stephanie. So I knew nothing. I never even considered a coroner before. Really, it's just not. I mean, you don't think about death. You try not to, do you? And I mean, it was her job to do that, but I try not to think about death that much. I just accept that it's part of life and it'll come to me. So I never really thought about coroners at all. So I know nothing about the coronial process, but it seems that it's not, you know, a bit more transparent, hopefully, than we hoped, but we'll see. Hi, Chris and Jonathan. Thirlwell is a complete farce, in my opinion. This is Keith speaking, who we both know. I lost all respect from the moment the chair warned us all about noise, speaking out and questioning the guilty verdicts. So I'm going to have some people to just. I know one of the doctors that's coming on soon expressed a strong opinion on this, so I will ask him about it. But I think it's disgusting to kind of characterize the very serious concerns from credentialed people in that way is, I think, indefensible, frankly. And I think she knew that, because when she made her comments, at the end of the inquiry, they'd become very much more measured. We'll have to wait and see. So Stephanie says, we don't know if there will be a full inquest hearing. It's needed, but this may be just an exercise in getting a coronial manner of death confirmed as unlawful killing and updated death certificates. Because I did discuss with Stephanie what's written on the death certificates, and yeah, that could be what happens. We'll just have to wait and see. Yeah, let's go a bit further down. It's gone a bit dark in your house.
I'm just going to get some water, but luckily I can go on my mobile phone, so I'll get some water like you. But I'll go back in a minute.
Don't you think it's telling that the new case is being thrown out could signal a softening ahead of a future overturn announcement? So I think it's possible. You know, we kind of expect this to be referred from the CCRC to the Court of Appeal in the next few months, possibly in the summer. So it's certainly good news in that respect. I've always expected the case would be referred, because how could you not refer this case? The CCRC would look utterly ridiculous. When it's referred, the Court of Appeal has been a problem in the past, and we just need to put as much pressure on them as we can. That's all that we can do, and hope that they understand the situation. You know, it's I can't say any more than that. Let's cross that bridge when we come to it. So we're not at that point yet. But yeah, it's possible. So it's just being confirmed here that it will be open. The coroners thing will be open. So we'll just have to wait and see. Let's go a bit further down. Hello to Black Squareable. Hope you're doing well. So I'm just looking for some more questions. I don't know if I'm going to be able to read out every comment, because we're about an hour behind the comments at this point. So I'll try and find some questions, and but I'm reading through them. Yeah, I'm just trying to find another question. The Thirlwell inquiry outcome will be a politically sensitive one. The judges picked to leave these sensitive inquiries are always ones that will not rock the boat. So yeah, I completely agree with that. I do think Thirlwell will be critical of the whole service, and that is the only way to save face. Well, that's an interesting perspective. You may very well be correct. I will say that I don't like to make predictions about Thirlwell, because I have no idea what they're going to do next. It will be interesting to see what they do. Let's see if they do anything in February. Surely Lady Thirlwell has hamstrung herself with her foolish early comments. How could she square the circle at this stage without admitting this? I'm sure she regrets those comments, because they were indeed foolish. These people will have pretty thick skin. At the end of the day, you've got to understand, she's already been paid $500,000 to do this, and then, you know, we don't know how much more she's going to get. So, you know, I'm sure that will make her philosophical about saying a few stupid things. I don't know how they're going to proceed. There've been some good suggestions from Jonathan and good suggestions from viewers. Like I said, I just don't like to make any predictions, but we can't see any reason why they can't criticize treatment at the hospital. There is no reason, because in fact, let's go further than that. It would be a dereliction of duty, really, if they didn't do that, because we've learnt an enormous amount from the Thirlwell inquiry documents about this hospital. So if they were to ignore that and just say, oh, it was fine, this is all entirely due to Lucy Letby, we didn't find any evidence of any problems at the hospital, that would be ludicrous. I mean, what else can you say? I mean, I just can't see any way they could do that.
But regardless of whether Lucy Letby murdered babies, I mean, if Thirlwell was really clever, what she could do is that she could put a framework to future, if there was ever in the future some suspicion that a medical practitioner had harmed or committed crimes, she entirely independently of Lucy Letby at all, she could just set up a framework of how you investigate potential criminal activity in the health service. And that wouldn't, and in fact, she could completely save face, because she wouldn't have to actually refer to Lucy at all. In fact, she could almost sort of say, I don't believe that well, she wouldn't ever say it outright, but she could put forward recommendations which were entirely independent of Lucy Letby, but would be really helpful for the future. So she has got an opportunity to create something really, really good here, but I just don't know whether she'll actually take that opportunity. If that's what I would do, but obviously I'm not her. And judges and lawyers think very differently to doctors. That's very sad as well.
They do indeed. We just have to, again, we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, I sound like a parrot, but we just don't know what they're going to do. And I don't think, even though Jonathan has written to them and we've had their word back from them, I don't think we can say that. I don't think we can place enormous confidence in what they said in that email.
No.
Will the book be delayed because of the rewrites? No, it won't be, because I won't allow that to happen. We've set a release date, approximate release date, and the book will come out at that approximate release date. So there's numerous reasons for that, but no, it won't be delayed. If the original death certificates were changed to fit in with Evan's crackpot theories, Stephanie Davis thinks this may be illegal. Yeah, I can't comment on that. Stephanie knows a hell of a lot more than me, that's for sure. So we just have to, again, we don't know what's going to happen in this coronial process. We'll just have to wait and see. When's Dewi coming on the podcast? Still waiting. I dream. Do you think I dream about this day? I dream about it. I mean, I've got so many questions. You don't realize how many questions I've got for him, because I've had people, numerous experts. I just say, by the way, if you've got any questions, I've got like, it's like this. It's like this. It'll be like the Nixon tapes by the time I finish with him. But he will never come on. He'll never come on. He can't face me. There's no way. I would just annihilate him. He'd be slaughtered. There's no way. The only way you can do an interview is to do a really. He either has to be with a weak interviewer who doesn't know the case, or someone who's too kind of gentlemanly or principled to. Oh God, I hate that stupid feature. Someone who's too gentlemanly or principled to, or wishes to be neutral, to hold him to account. So in the Channel 4, he still looked bloody stupid in the Channel 4 documentary. They didn't even ask him any proper questions hardly, and he still made an idiot out of himself. But those kind of documentary filmmakers, because they're taking a neutral position, or attempting to, or at least a relatively neutral position, they won't say, like when he gives a stupid answer about Canada and the United. If it was me, I'd be like, I'd take him on, and I would say, I would get him to justify that opinion. And I would respond to what he's saying. He cannot do an interview with anyone like that now. There's just no way, because, I mean, I will tell you a little story. I don't know if I said this previously. I think I may have mentioned in a previous video, but I will tell you this. So I was reading through my books, because it's the final draft and I had to present it to the publisher. So it's very difficult to be objective about your own work. You're trying to be objective and you're trying to make it as strong as you can. And also, it's a bit of a bitty process, so you don't really get it's not like enjoyable like reading a chapter in a book. You got to. It's a very stop start process. But one of the chapters I read it, and I got to the end of that chapter, and I just thought, oh my God, I've annihilated him in this chapter. Like, I've absolutely slaughtered him in this chapter. And the thing is, it's all quoting him. That's the funny thing about it. It's not me saying stuff. It's just me saying, he did this, then he said this, then he did this, then he said this, then he did this. He can't say anything. He can't say anything about that. Nothing. Because all I've done
even Judith Moritz, when in the Panorama, the most recent Panorama, she asked him a question and he came out with such a stupid answer that even she was completely lost for words. So, I mean, it's extraordinary. I mean, Mark McDonald describes him as the gift that just keeps on giving, and he just loves it. Whenever Dowie comes on, he just makes you can't even begin to dream what he's going to say. It's just extraordinary what he comes up with. He doesn't see. He's like Donald Trump. He's just got no insight into how stupid the things he says are. He just doesn't understand it. He just does not. he's right up there with Donald Trump in terms of, you know, narcissism and just having utterly no insight into your stupidity. It's just incredible.
I mean, I was saying yesterday, I've said this before again, he seems to think that we're still living in an age where you had to go to the library and look up things on microfiche. He doesn't seem to realize that when he says something, it's there forever on the internet. He just seems to think he can say stuff and like do some PR statement, and then everything else just falls away. I'm like, but mate, you've already, like, even in his statement yesterday, he's saying, oh, I didn't know anything about the cases. Well, why did you previously say, I think she's guilty and I think this and I think that and I've referred 25 cases? We know that because we've read it and it's still there and it's there forever. Don't you realize that? Don't you realize that? He doesn't seem to realize that, but he's an extraordinary character, So there's a question here for me. Have you had neonatologists, Mark McDonald, etc., review your book? Well, I didn't bother Mark because he's very busy, and I haven't spoken to him for the book because, you know, his job is to run the legal side of things. So I haven't spoken to him, but yes, I've had a neonatologist review my book, and I've had actually numerous doctors and scientists and nurses. It's been fact checked as much as I could possibly have it fact checked, and there's still going to be more because I just want to make sure that I get it as close to perfect as I can. So yeah, it's been reviewed and fact checked very strongly, including by a neonatologist. Can we get Dewi in front of the coroner? Doubtful, unfortunately. Any coroner finding the same cause as Evans will lose credibility completely. You would think so, wouldn't you? You would think so, but it depends what they're actually allowed to do. You know, I don't fully understand this yet, so we'll just learn more about it as it goes along, I guess. Are Brewery and J-Ram plus all the other doctors going to get called up to the coroner's court? Probably not, I would think. It could happen though, couldn't it?
Well, there might be witnesses. I mean, because obviously if they were there when the babies died, then so they might be. Again, it all depends on the terms the coroner decides to impose on each investigation. Really, that's what it'll all come down to.
That would be interesting to see if they were called up, because I mean, I bet that's the last thing they want to do at this point. Yeah, let's go a bit further down. So another more question about Dewi and the coroner's court. So I don't think they would call him in because he's not a witness. So
no, he'd be the last person because he's got absolutely no You'd have to have first-hand knowledge of the circumstances of the death of the babies, and his only knowledge is from what he read in the notes, and so his opinion's worth nothing. Yeah.
So someone's got a question here, a valid question. I'll leave this one to Jonathan to answer. In answering my question, you are all saying Sandy is a low-flying neonatologist, but how was Dewi more qualified than her? He was retired for 10 years and unlicensed initially. It makes no sense.
Well, that's the whole crux of it. Basically, Dewi was brought in and they realised that he was a paediatrician, although he tells everybody that he set up a neonatal unit in Swansea. I don't know about that. He certainly wasn't a specialist neonatologist. So essentially, they used Dewi Evans's evidence, but they wanted Sandy Bowen to come in and to ratify and back up his evidence. And my understanding, and I'm sure I'm correct, is that she didn't really have a look at all the original notes. She simply read Dewi's reports. Is that not right, Chris? And
oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So
I mean, she was certainly given his reports. That's not in doubt.
Yeah, which you never should be. I mean, in my early career, I sometimes said, "Oh, if you've got a report already, could I read it before I write my report?" And the solicitors always say, "No, you know, you've got to read you've got to come to your own conclusions entirely from the evidence. You don't come to your conclusions from another expert's evidence. You've got to come to it from the raw data and from the evidence that you find for yourself." So that should never be the case. So my opinion, my understanding is that that Sandy Bowen simply came in to back up as a supposedly practicing neonatologist the evidence of somebody who'd been retired from paediatrics since 2007 or 2008, I think.
Mm.
So it was a shambles, complete shambles.
Something that had just occurred to me that I've never raised before, actually, is obviously Sandy Bowen has reviewed the reports of Dr. Evans and the opinion of Dr. Evans, and she's supposedly done the peer review. Now, we're all critical of that peer review, but another interesting question would be, which reports did she review and when did she do it? Because Dr. Evans submitted so many. One of the things that she definitely did not do was review the Child C case, because they changed it in court. So she definitely didn't review that. But when did she do her peer review? On what date? And what reports did she review? And did Dr. Evans change his opinions after that date on any cases other than the ear into the stomach cases where we know he changed his opinion? We don't know the answer to this question, but it would be an interesting one to know about for sure. Question here. Liz Hull says in the Mail that it's understood that several families are planning to appeal the CPS decision. Wishful thinking on Hull's part, the CPS won't reverse. So Liz Hull's a ridiculous figure. You have to understand that all she really cares about is that her podcast isn't completely discredited, which in the case of exoneration, it will be completely discredited. That's all she really cares about, and that's why she's so strongly taking the position that she does. There are other possible reasons as well, but that will be a clear motivating factor. The CPS are not going to reverse this decision. There is a statutory process, but at the end of the day, it hasn't met the evidential test, and they know they'd be annihilated in court, and they're not going to reverse this. If they did, it would be extraordinary, and it would just open them up to even more criticism, and then the case would have to go to court, and then they'll be annihilated in court. So, yeah, it's wishful thinking. She just writes anything. Let's be honest. I mean, you've seen me going through a podcast. So someone's mentioned about Sandy Bowen went to a small unit once a year to keep her skills updated. I have a feeling it was in Coventry. I could be wrong, but she went to some unit on the mainland anyway. So, there's even some doubt whether she did that, but we don't know. So let's just assume she did for the sake of argument. Let's go a bit further down. Good for you not caring what Tosh those Twitter guilt is, right? To be honest, they've become a source of comedy lately. The Jolly Contrarian and someone else who I don't know are roasting them beautifully. Yeah, I just don't listen because, listen, I've said this before and I'll say it again. I've interviewed over 60 experts for this book. I could now rewrite that book and use 60 different experts who I've spoken to, who are in my email. I've got people emailing me all the time. As I've said, I'm going to have 4 more experts come onto the channel soon. And I could have a good crack at writing a 3rd book with another 60 experts. And I'm not saying this to blow my own trumpet, but not one of those experts has said a single critical remark. I've had some really kind things said to me that are really humbling, and they're all on my side. So if it was the other way around, and obviously the so-called Twitter guilt, as you describe them, they have no qualifications, no experience, no knowledge. They haven't interviewed anyone. They know nothing. So, if it was the other way around, and I had hundreds of experts saying, "Hold on, Chris, you've got this wrong. This is rubbish." Blah blah blah. Then I'd be concerned. And they were praising me. That would be concerning. But the inverse situation with them criticizing me and all the experts praising me, I'm very comfortable with the current situation. So why I would pay attention to any of them, I have absolutely no idea. I mean, someone did copy me. Actually, my publisher sent me something the other day, and one of them, who I won't name, was crying about me. Funny. I just find it funny. If anything, they can talk about me till the cows come home. I live rent-free in their head. They're of no importance to me whatsoever. So that's all I can say. I'm a fairly regular listener. I'm paraphrasing, but I thought in a previous stream you said not much mud would ever stick to Dewi Evans, but you have just used the word trouble re his predicament. So I don't know precisely what I said or what you're referencing, but I think Dewi Evans is the most vulnerable person involved with the prosecution of Lucy Letby because he has no friends. the police are the police. The Crown Prosecution Service is the Crown Prosecution Service. The consultants can stick together. The criminal justice system, is notorious for its cronyism. Dewi Evans is just a man in a house in Wales who doesn't even know anyone, who couldn't even get one doctor, despite, as Jonathan has said, repeated requests from Philip Hammond, can you get one person to back you up? No. He hasn't managed to get even one person to back him up. He's very vulnerable indeed. In fact, one of the things we need to be careful of is it's not all blamed on him, because they'll stab him in the back so quickly they'll forget and stab him in the front. Wait and see.
So that's the whole point, because the lawyers are all going to turn around and go, oh well, I know it looks bad on us, but we were absolutely reliant on this expert, and this was his opinion and we had to accept it. And so he's got nowhere to hide. Everyone is going to throw everything at him, and that's the point, being the sort of what's the phrase, the sort of champion expert witness that he likes to portray himself as is great if you got it right, but if you got it completely wrong, everyone will throw everything at you and nobody will take any blame. Everything will be put on Dowie. So I think when everything comes to fruition, Dowie's going to be he's going to be the lightning conductor for everything. So yeah, that's my prediction anyway.
And in addition to what Jonathan is saying, that's another reason, apart from leaving aside the fact that this is what you're actually supposed to do, but it's another reason why you should be cautious in your comments and as impartial as possible. Because take, for example, Sally Kinsey. So Sally Kinsey has said something in court that I disagree with, and she said a few things that I think are not, something that I think is simply wrong, and other things that I disagree with. But she was much more measured in her comments. And when she was cross-examined by Myers, she made concessions. And she said, yeah, this air embolism theory, I don't really know anything about it, to be honest. Really, she shouldn't have been giving evidence on it at all. And she basically conceded that. And she also said the literature supporting it is very weak, or very limited, I think was the word she used. So when this all falls apart, it's not going to be a disaster for Sally Kinsey, because Sally Kinsey has not, in my view, behaved in a way that is unreasonable. That doesn't mean she can't be subjected to criticism, but she hasn't gone in. When you compare what Evans has said in court compared to her, he's as we've discussed and described, he's very vulnerable. And everyone is going to, as Jonathan says, it'll be like a coconut shy, just with his head, and people will just be taking pot shots at him, basically. So yeah, he's in big trouble. He knows it. Let's go a bit further down. NHS England Council also stated neutral position on pause. Their closing statement all about care, etc. Token, minimal, hypothetical, deliberate harm bit thrown to comply. So yes, more about the coroners. It seems that the CCRC are themselves obstructing justice. The magnitude of the case is too loud for trivial matters like their egos. They should get a grip in advance. So I'm not going to defend the CCRC, but they're dealing with what is a very... Because I've said already on the channel that I think you should be able to tell within a month that this is an unsafe conviction. But they are dealing with a very complex case, and that there is more of an onus on them to thoroughly examine what has been presented. They may even be commissioning their own reports. We don't know. So I know it's frustrating for people that they haven't referred it yet, but it's still going to be relatively quick compared to what usually occurs. I'm really not saying this to defend the CCRC, because they've been criticised, and rightfully so, but I do think they're taking this seriously. Dame Vera Bird she's made herself visible. She's made herself visible. She was at Westminster, and I know it's frustrating, but they do have to take a little bit of time over it. What do you think about the kind of the CCRC process, Jonathan?
Well, I agree with you. What you said earlier is that it's inevitable that they're going to refer it. They just could not refer such a big case. It all really boils down to the Court of Appeal. And as I said, I went to the Colin Campbell Court of Appeal hearing, and they are very, very, very anally retentive, and they will stick entirely to their legal remit. And so that's why I think, people like Steve Watts have brought in so much new police evidence, and I think it's a matter of finding a lot of what they will consider to be new evidence, and also that a lot of evidence that never actually reached the jury at the original trial. I'm never quite sure how important that is, but that would seem to me to be if there is a lot of information which the original jury just did not hear, or the prosecution withheld stuff, or didn't investigate properly, or didn't follow their procedures, which they clearly didn't. So really, the CCRC is a bit of a smokescreen, because it's the Court of Appeal that is where it's all at. So for Colin Campbell, the fact that the CCRC referred it got to the Court of Appeal, but in the Court of Appeal things went very badly wrong, and he's not been successful, and he's got to start all over again. That's really the worst nightmare for Lucy. So I think it will inevitably get back to the Court of Appeal, but it's really what happens at the Court of Appeal and the way they view the case and the evidence, and we just can't predict that yet. And I just hope that because Mark McDonald, we know for a fact, will not be the person actually conducting the trial. So I just hope that the barrister they do have will do a really good job at the Court of Appeal, because it's so. I was there at the Colin Campbell case, and it was Michael Mansfield, who in his day was absolutely formidable, but he's now in his late 80s, and he was conducting the case, and it didn't go well at all, and he was visibly not an absolute shadow of himself. So Lucy's got to have a great barrister to represent her at the Court of Appeal, and it can't go wrong the way it did for Colin Campbell.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me just ask you, I don't even like to contemplate this too much, but let's say we failed at the Court of Appeal the first time round. Do you think there's any strategies that Mark can use at that point, or that anyone involved with a legal case could use? As an example, could he publicly release the reports?
Well, the beauty of the Court of Appeal, unlike the original verdict in the criminal case, where Judge Goss doesn't have to write anything, he doesn't write anything at all. The Court of Appeal will have to produce a very, very clear justification for their verdict. So really, if it's not successful at the Court of Appeal, their verdict should give reasons. Now, I say that, but I was not impressed at all by the Court of Appeal judgment as to why she wasn't given leave to appeal, because things like the fact that they justified Dewey Evans as a reasonable expert, despite the fact that Judge Jackson had made stinging criticisms of him. Other aspects, I didn't think it added up, even their judgment on the leave to appeal. So you just got to read what they've. If we had a chance to go through what the Court of Appeal said in her failure to get for it to be appealed, you could analyze and address those those judgments. So if it isn't successful, the Court of Appeal will have to explain why it hasn't been successful, and then at that point you'll have to see where you stand. That's how it'll work.
Yeah. Well, let's hope that doesn't happen, but we need to be aware of that, obviously. Let's go a little bit further down. So someone agreeing with your view of the YouTube channel that I will not mention the name of again. He's had enough publicity already. He's just saying that the transcripts proved to me there was no evidence, but he made his mind up because of the guilty verdict. So there's an interesting question here from someone. Dr. Susan Gilby, another whistleblower, has recently been awarded 1.4 million damages against the County of Chester NHS Trust. Dr. Gilby is 62. What should Lucy expect, considering she was in her 20s when all this started? So firstly, there is a capped amount of compensation you can receive from the government, which I think is £2 million, if I remember rightly. and it's not a certainty that Lucy would receive that. We don't know. What I would say is that I'm sure Lucy will receive an enormous amount of money from crowdfunding campaigns. We already are planning and discussing this. It's just a case of being able to organise it and obviously get her out of prison. So I think Lucy will never have to worry about money, even if she doesn't get compensation, although compensation is possible for her as well. But I think it's capped at 2 million. And then, as I said previously, if she wants to do this, it will be very much up to her, of course. But if she wants me to write a book for her and with her, I will do that, and I'll just give her that book, and I'll just ask for a flat ghostwriter's fee, and she can keep the proceeds from that, which would be extremely lucrative, of course. And they'd want to make a drama, and if Lucy doesn't make some money out of the drama, then that would be very wrong. So I don't think Lucy needs to worry about finance, because I think people will make sure she's okay, and I think it will be absolutely fine for her. But it's very difficult to predict the compensation because the state is so sniffy about this, and it's actually not guaranteed that she'll receive a penny of compensation, because you have to. I think she will, because it would just be too controversial not to give a compensation, but it's not guaranteed because of the rules. Like everything in this system, where you could have said that 3 years ago, but you didn't, so you've got to stay in prison. Oh well, you can't. We're not going to compensate you because you have to prove that you're innocent. Oh well, your defence barrister cocked up, but that's not our problem. That's your problem. So can I apply to say I had an inadequate defence? No, you can't, because we've said you had an adequate defence, but you said I've lost because of my defence barrister. Well, tough luck. That's the way it is. All these things, everything's stacked up against you, but, we'll just have to, again, cross this bridge when we come to it. But I think Lucy will not have to worry about money. Did the experienced journalist not find it a bit strange that no defence witnesses were called? So, again, in the ITV documentary, Josh Halliday expressed, or it may have been the Channel 4 one, Josh Halliday said it was very surprising when this happened and they were all expecting it. And I still don't know why Professor Michael Hall wasn't called, and he doesn't know. No one knows. So, yeah.
Well, Ben Myers knows, doesn't he?
Yes. He's literally the only person who knows, and then Lucy's solicitor presumably knows as well, and that's it. No one else knows. So, just looking for some more questions. Scroll a bit further down. I'm just looking for questions because we're still 35 minutes behind. So, Chris, your frustration is shared. I cannot think where Lucy's getting strength from. I would have gone crazy and completely shut down. We're all supporting you in this fight. Free Lucy now. So, I mean, I'm so grateful for the support. I've said this so many times, but I was never planning to do YouTube at all. I mean, I planned to write a book at a certain point, and it's just purely because the statement occurred from the Thirlwell inquiry from the families. And I thought someone's got to respond to this. And then if you go back and look at my early videos, although the content is still decent, the presentation and the audio and stuff is absolutely dreadful because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And I've learned a bit since then, and now the presentation's a lot better. And I think I've got a little bit better on camera and a little bit better giving the audio, but it was never planned for me to do this. And I couldn't possibly have anticipated that I'd have this level of support. And so many people have emailed me, like my email bot. I mean, it's completely out of control. I've got so many unanswered emails by now. I'm never going to be able to catch up, but it's very much appreciated. So I think given the level of support I've had, that the least I can do in response is just give my best, which I intended to do anyway until Lucy is cleared. And then we'll go from there. I mean, I'll definitely carry on doing this channel. I don't know what I will do and how it will be and what content I will do exactly, but I'm really appreciative of the community I've got, and I'd hate to lose touch with you all, and I'll definitely carry on making videos. Sorry, go on.
Something that came out of the 19 Nurses Conference, and something which is so shocking, is there's a lot of nurses. I mean, we heard about a nurse who was convicted of murder because she gave she put up a prescribed morphine pump which had been prescribed, and she's still in prison, and she's a very, very low profile miscarriage of justice. And I think that's the other thing that's been so shocking that I've discovered. I mean, both you and I have come into this completely new world of miscarriages of medical justice, and it is just absolutely outrageous how some of these cases have just been fought with very small numbers of people, and these people are in prison facing absolutely horrendous charges which should never have been substantiated. So do you remember that presentation about that nurse?
Yeah. Yeah, and there's another nurse in the Facebook group who has been wrongly convicted. So I know her life has been profoundly affected by it, and she still has issues related to that, problems with it, psychological issues. So it's very sad. It's very sad. Let's go a bit further down. What a world and system we live in, where we think we have to find ways. I don't quite understand that. Sorry. Chris Dowie has done his last ever interview and statement. He won't ever come on or say anything about the case ever again. Yeah. I think
pigs might fly.
Yeah. He will definitely respond to my book. He'll definitely say something. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't. I'm sure that he will. So that's not a problem for me. It'll be a problem for him, but it's not a problem for me. So Wesley says he may actually want to speak to you. Well, I know for a fact he doesn't, because I've emailed him. I've contacted him, and he completely ignored me both times. So I will give him further opportunity, and the other big players in this will also be given the opportunity to respond, but I don't expect a response. Hi to Thomas. Thanks for joining us. So there's a question about the Jeremy Kyle interview from Crancer. So I'll just mention briefly that we have discussed that, and Mark did perfectly well. I don't know too much about what his position is. Someone says here he seemed to mellow by the end of it. I thought Mark actually silenced him. I mean, basically, Jeremy Kyle probably went into the interview knowing very little about the case. That's usually the case, and so he probably doesn't know anything about it, and that's why he was silenced. Some questions about Dewi having memory issues and possible psychological issues. I don't think this is the case. I think he's absolutely compos mentis. I think he's just desperately trying to defend himself. Would the consultants, Dr. B and Dr. Breary, have been made to go on a course to refresh their competency at any point? This is a question for Jonathan.
Not at the moment, because I think we're all very polarized in that we are absolutely of the firm opinion that Lucy Letby is innocent. Of course, in their minds and in a lot of the public's minds, she's a convicted criminal. So we're never going to be on the moral high ground until she is exonerated. So at the moment, why should they go on a course to, they're on the right side. They've been convicted she's been convicted on their evidence. So we all think that they're clearly very poor clinicians, but at the moment, there's no reason why the criminal justice system is on their side rather than ours. So that's what I don't think they see themselves as incompetent people, even though there's a thorough inquiry quite clearly shows there's evidence that some of their activities was clearly substandard, but they don't see it that way at all. I don't think.
Would they have been made to do this type, or asked or requested to do this type of thing, as part of their work, their general?
Well, At our, I mean, once you're a senior doctor, your CPD is up to you. So essentially, every year you have to organise for yourself what you consider to be correct for you, and then you have got to present it into an appraisal. And then once a year, every doctor in the country has an appraisal with an appraiser, and you submit the evidence of your annual CPD. And then there are certain things you have to do. So, for example, you've got to do cardiorespiratory resuscitation once a year. You've got to show evidence that you've done that. Every 3 years, you've got to show evidence that you've done safeguarding training. And then beyond that, you've got to be honest and say if there are areas in your practice you don't think you have weaknesses, that you've addressed them and that you've improve them, and you've just got to basically show that you are up to date and you are competent to be a doctor ongoing. So, and then every 5 years, every doctor in the country has to be revalidated. So your appraisals for the last 5 years and evidence that you've done all the mandatory training and anything else that you've been required to do is assessed, and then there is a decision every 5 years whether you will be revalidated to do another 5 years. So every 5 years, in theory, every doctor in the country is looked at and assessed as whether they're competent to practice.
Interesting. Hello to Mark. Nice to have you here. It was enjoyable to be on your stream yesterday. Let's go a bit further down. Yeah, just still going down. So there's some comments to Mark. Yeah, hope you well, Mark. Yeah, so question about here. So there's a comment here about I hope when she's exonerated, she sues them all. I've told her to do exactly that. So this gentleman, I think it's a gentleman, must have written to Lucy. Do you think that's a realistic possibility? I mean, I've heard something about this, so I'll tell you about this in a second. But what do you think, Jonathan? Do you think this is a realistic possibility?
It all depends on Lucy. I mean, I've talked to very senior barristers about this, and it really depends. I don't know. I mean, obviously, people like Dawn know her very well. I know people that do know her. She may literally say, I'm absolutely fed up with the legal process. I just want to disappear, and I don't want to ever have anything to do with the legal process again. It's too, and particularly as she's definitely suffered from post-traumatic stress, and she may just never want to turn her back completely on the legal process and just try and live out the rest of her life completely free of anything legal, in which case she's not really on a very firm footing, because definitely the lawyers have said to me that the best way, the legal process would be best if it was spearheaded by her and she took the lead. Obviously, if she decides she does want to get legal retribution for all that she's been through, and she really went at it, then that would be the best way forward. But I have a strong suspicion that she, just knowing her personality, knowing her background, I think she'll probably not want to engage the rest of her life against lawyers. We've seen with Prince Harry what it does to you. So I don't know. I think she probably won't. But what do you think?
I completely agree with you. I think it's very unlikely that she would, because it's the last thing she's going to want to do is be in the courtroom. Can you imagine that? That's almost triggering just being there. I mean, I just don't think she will. No. But we're going to make sure that she is financially secure when this is over. I'm sure that will be no problem. So someone's making a comment about chess, about how I mentioned it a few times. I found that very funny when you made that comment. Can I just say that, in my defense, that when you do hours and hours and hours of video, you don't remember everything you've said. And also you don't, like, it's some very trivial detail about myself. So I don't know how much attention people pay, but obviously I must have said that a few times. The ironic thing is I don't play chess very much now because I'm too bloody tired. Like I've played a bit and I just think, I can't think about the moves enough. So, but I play the odd game still until when until next year, and hopefully things will calm down a little bit. I've not been playing very much, but it is a good game that people should play it. It's a very enjoyable game. Let's go a bit further down. Yeah, so people are saying Jonathan's a great guest, which I agree. I knew he'd be a great guest. We'll probably have it. I mean, almost certainly have him back in the future. I mean, I'm actually planning to do another live stream this month, because I'm going to do a few while I can, because I don't know what my life's going to be like. I don't even know which part of the country I'm going to be in for the rest of this year once things start to happen with my book. There are plans, as I mentioned earlier, for me to do various things. So I just don't know what this year's going to look like. So I enjoy doing these live streams, and the reason for doing them was to try and give something back to the people that have supported me. So I am going to do a few of these while I can, because I don't know whether I'll be able to do them later in the year. So I'm sure we'll get Jonathan back in the future.
Can I give a suggestion of what I hope would be a really good thing to do an interview with, or a discussion about?
Yes.
I think it's so easy to forget the incredible progress that we've made in the last year, because they were on Mark's channel yesterday. They were saying, oh, the first thing that really happened was Shu Lee in February, but actually the first thing that happened in January last year was David Davis standing up in court and having a debate in the House of Commons on Lucy Letby. And I remember at the time, I mean, I just thought, my God, it's not going to get better than this. This is the high water. I mean, to have an MP having a 3/4 of an hour debate in the Houses of Parliament about Lucy Letby is just going to be, we'll never get anything better than that. And the astounding progress and the achievements that have happened. I mean, Lord Sumption, what David Davis has done, obviously Shu Lee, and then the evidence that people have come up with. So I just want to sort of perhaps have a discussion, celebration, and acknowledgement of all the where we've come from. Because I remember when particularly after the second trial, but after the first trial as well, the sort of just the hopelessness and thinking this is such an enormous mountain we've got to climb and we'll never manage it. And so I'd like to do that. And the other thing I'd love to do in the same interview would be just to acknowledge some of the amazing people that we've come across, because I think we've both discussed this. I mean, I come from a wonderful environment. I've been in the medical profession for 35 years. I've been in the legal profession. I've met some incredible barristers and people, but I've just met some of the most phenomenally high quality people in the last year and a half through Lucy Letby. And I've actually written to her in my letters to her. I just say, my life has been completely changed, and I've met people I'd never, ever, ever would meet from from all areas of society. I mean, you and I both know Roger Norwich. I mean, what an incredible person he is. And I won't go into too much detail. I would do if he gave me permission and we had an interview. People like well, I mean, Mark Mays, what an incredible guy he is. I've just had such incredible fun with him. People like Carl.
He's very good at his analogies, I always think. I tried to match him a little bit last night, or at least come up with a couple, but he's very good at his little turns of phrase, I think.
Well, I mean, his comedy is just extraordinary. I mean, I just think his comedy, and the sad thing is he does an exceptional piece of comedy, and the video is only up for about 2 hours, and then he takes it down. I mean, he's done so many. I mean, I'd love to just to talk about some of the comedy he's done. It's just, and his songs. In fact, actually, I sent him. He did a song, and then somebody else has done a rehash of one of his songs, and he didn't even know about it. I sent him the video, and things like that. And
you may notice that I don't do songs.
No,
there is a reason for that.
We don't expect a song from you, Chris, but I mean, that's great. And then other people like Richard and Pat. I mean, Richard and Pat. Their story, the fact that they were the first two in the first Court of Appeal hearing when there were only 5 people standing outside the Royal Courts of Justice at her first appeal in, I think it was May 2024. And at the time, the view of Lucy Letby was absolutely horrendous. And just the bravery of people like Richard and Pat, who did the very first appeal, and then that's paved the way to the meetings we had in Birmingham and the original one in Liverpool, and the effect that that's had. And just so I don't know, I mean, maybe people can give some reaction, but if I'd love to come on and we can sort of celebrate our achievement, but also just celebrate and highlight the incredible people that have been involved in this journey. And I just want to say thank you for the way they've changed my life. And I'm just what started for me just being unhappy about a conviction of a nurse from Chester has led me to meet the most incredible people and had the most extraordinary experience over the last year and a half.
Yeah, and I mean I echo that entirely. I mean, actually, when I was at Manchester, I won't say I was sat on a table. I was sat at the head of the table. That was an entire accident. That was not. But I was sat at the head of the table, and I was looking. It's like a banquet table, and I was looking at the people. And I won't mention the names of the people who were there because they may not wish for me to do that. And I was like, "This is not like the tables I sat on when I was growing up in Lincolnshire." It was like the caliber of people there. And they all knew who I was. They all knew who I was. It was bizarre. It was really humbling. And yeah, I've met. I mean, it's the only silver lining in this very dark cloud is that I've met so many amazing people, as you say, from every walk of life. People with professional qualifications, people who are just concerned citizens, if you want to describe it that way. And it's really. It's a real privilege for me because obviously I get an enormous amount of emails. I get yesterday I didn't even eat. I didn't eat until 1 o'clock in the morning. I made myself an omelette and chips at 1 o'clock in the morning because all I got all day was notifications, messages. I had to speak to various people. I had to do, I had to do the recording. Then I thought, well, I better join Mark because I've got the time to do it. And I didn't actually eat. I had nothing to eat until 1 a.m. and I really enjoyed what I made because I was starving. But that's just because I know so many people now, and they're all amazing. And let me tell you something else. This is just a very trivial, anecdotal aspect of this. So, as you know, I interview a lot of people, and they're always there, spot on time, every time. And trust me, that is not the case. I've interviewed a lot of people before this, and that is not the case. People will be late, or they'll forget the meeting, or they'll, oh, sorry, I got busy with something. Every single person, it's like literally the clock ticks over, and they're there. And that's the ones that aren't early, because quite a lot of people come early, and that for me is a big thing because, like I say, that's the standards I set myself. I always try to make sure I'm on time. There's been a couple of problems with the live stream, but that was because I didn't know how to work the technology. And I really appreciate that. So yeah, I completely echo your views. And yeah, it would take us a little bit of time, but maybe I can ask you to start to think about the timeline, and we could do a timeline together and discuss everything that's happened and all the people we'd like to mention, which are in a large number. That would be really interesting, and yeah, we should take a step back sometimes to think about what we've achieved, which is this case is in the forefront of the public consciousness now, and look at all so many experts that come forward now. It's not just the 31 experts that Mark has got. It's not just those 31. It's hundreds, certainly hundreds more, thousands probably if you include nurses. You're absolutely right. So it's a good idea. A good idea. So we'll whether we could arrange that by the end of January, I don't know, but let's try. Let's try, because I was going to do one more live stream towards the end of January, maybe the 30th. So if we can get it together by then we might do that on the 30th. Let's see.
Great.
Let's go a little bit further down. Since really looking into this, it frazzles your brain just thinking this isn't only Lucy, it's systemic failure for years and years. So I'll ask Jonathan to comment on this in a second. But this is why, I feel that I need to be involved in this as much as I possibly can for the rest of my life. Now that I've got a bit of a small platform, and as I say, it'll get bigger. I need to repay that by doing something for someone other than Lucy. Naturally, at the moment, my focus has to be entirely on Lucy. But in the future, I would like to address some systemic issues that we all know are prevalent in this case. And it is. I mean, I've often thought about the Andrew Malkinson case. So coincidentally, he grew up near where I grew up. And it could easily have been me, or it could easily have been anyone sitting watching this broadcast, or anyone at all in the country. He just sat in his house or his flat, bang, 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 there's someone at the door, it's the police. They probably want to talk about something that's happened in the neighborhood. We're arresting you on suspicion of rape. And then you're in prison. I mean, can you imagine what that's like? It must be such a surreal journey. And you must think, well, I'm going to be exonerated. I mean, I wasn't even at the crime scene. And then you're not exonerated. And then you're in prison, and then you're in prison for 17 years. And then you're living in a tent after you come out because you can't get compensation in time. I mean, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Anyway, what do you think about the systemic failures that have been going on for years and years, Jonathan?
Well, I think that's absolutely what's been highlighted by you and by many others, is that it could happen to anybody, and it can happen to anybody, and the difficulty is it suddenly just goes completely out of control, and from both Lucy and Andrew Malkinson and other people have gone along with it because they've thought early on very naively everything will be fine, and there's no evidence and everything will be fine, and then suddenly everything's gone completely wrong, and they just find themselves in this egregious situation, and there's no way of getting out of it. And I think that's the other reason why I remember you saying some time ago, I remember you saying, I hope that if I was in Lucy's situation, that somebody would try and help me and try and stand up for me, and that's what we're trying to do. And that's the other thing I want to say to people is that I mean, you and I, we go to the conferences, and we're quite high profile, and you're way higher profile than I am, but we're high profile. But just the fact that so many people watch the videos, do the comments, and people say, oh, well, I don't do very much. I watch the odd video, but actually everything that anyone does it all adds up, and it's all very, very powerful. And I remember you talking recently about how important YouTube videos are, and that it's the number of comments and it's the length of time that people watch the videos. And I was blown. Anyone who watched my interview with you, I was just so humbled and so blown away by some of the lovely, lovely comments and the way it went down, and the really positive reaction. And it was the people that actually took the time, and obviously a lot of people watched the whole 2 hours of the interview, which again was incredible to me, which it was fantastic. But also that people spent time and the trouble to actually write the comments. And this is all very, very powerful, because this is what adds weight to everything, and people can tell that. The other thing that astounded me recently, and I don't know if it's true, but there was some article that came out that says that there's evidence that 18 million people have watched all the documentaries, the Lucy Letby sort of documentaries, and all the sort of mainstream stuff that's been out there. Now, 18 million views is just mind-blowing. So it's everybody's contribution, and no contribution is too small. Everybody's contribution is important, and I'm just so grateful for the fact that people are remaining interested and are just going onto Mark's channel, your channel, and just contributing in their small way. But the mass of it all is going to make a big difference, and it's all incredibly important, absolutely vital.
Yeah, and I'd like to add to that, and I've said this before, and I said this when I spoke in Hereford. It's critical, like the grassroots efforts on social media are the reason that Lucy's prospects are better today. It's the primary reason. It's not the most glamorous aspect of the whole campaign, arguably, but just on this basis alone, Clersey, we've mentioned before, she was the person that referred this case to Rachel Aviv for the New Yorker. And that was why the New Yorker article came out. Clersey did the research for the article as well. I've never actually asked her this, and I'm speaking to her quite soon, so I'll have to ask her. But I assume, given there was almost no critical content in the mainstream media, that she would have looked and encountered stuff on social media. I think she very much used her own intuition as well. But I think people commenting on social media have literally made the difference of getting this into the mainstream. I think without that, it wouldn't have gone to the mainstream, and it definitely wouldn't have gone to the mainstream so quickly. So I would compare this to the Birmingham Six, where because there was no social media at that time, it basically took 13 years for anything to happen. With Lucy, I mean, I remember you mentioned Roger earlier. I remember I've spoken to Roger quite a bit, but met him face to face in Manchester, and I was thinking it's less than a year since he was at the press conference, but that seemed like 5 years.
Just over a year. It was December, wasn't it? December.
Yeah, roughly. So it seemed like 5 years ago that press conference, because so much has happened, and that is because of a very sustained effort, grassroots activism, you could describe it as, on social media, and of people supporting and enabling others. And so actually something I remember from Manchester was I met someone who's a viewer and often comments, and she was saying, "Oh, I really enjoyed your interview with Jonathan, this, that, and the other." And I said, "Well, he's over there." It's like, and I remember, I think you spoke to her for ages as well, and that was really nice. It's so nice just to be able to introduce someone who's seen something you've done. And I've been able to do other things. I've been able to connect people behind the scenes. I've been able to enable others. And I think the way that the community has come together is spectacular. It's an incredible thing. And, if this wasn't such a dark subject, it would be an amazing time in my life. As it is, it's still good, but I try and remember that Lucy's still in prison and, not to get carried away, obviously. But yeah, it has been inspirational in many ways, and I mean, I'm glad we've discussed that, and we'll try and do something where we go over the whole time, and that'll be really cool. Let's go a bit further down. So I've nearly caught up now. People are just having a conversation here. I think it's pretty telling that the interview Jonathan saw on Breakfast TV with Derry was still while there was an information block. So I think that it would have been immediately after the original trial. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was straight after the original trial.
Yeah, so there wasn't an information block at that time. That came after Child K. So that's another thing.
Well, no, it came between the original trial and the trial of Baby K.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, correct. So that's another thing to consider. We were basically gagged for 6 months. There couldn't be any mainstream coverage, and I mean,
10 months. It was from September 23 to June 24 when essentially that was you couldn't. But I think the New Yorker article was really the big game changer, because that's what got David Davis involved. And it is actually, I mean, so many people like Carl and many people who got involved. The New Yorker was was the game changer. And I can't remember the name of the girl you were saying who she actually contacted Rachel Aviv and told her about the Lucy Letby case. Is that right?
Yes. She's Trials of Lucy Letby, or I can't remember exact Twitter user handle, but it's the Trials of Lucy Letby Twitter account is her Twitter. So I mean, I just I got to know her a little bit, and I didn't know that initially, obviously, but when I was just on Twitter, I could just see this account was very high quality, always very authoritative in everything I didn't even know if it was a he or a she at that time, but everything this account said was very authoritative. And yeah, I mean, again, like I've got to know Lucy a bit, quite well, I would say, and that's a real privilege because she's brilliant. And I feel so fortunate to come into contact with so many people. It's amazing. And when Lucy comes out, we need to all stick together, and we need to deal with the next phase. The next phase is making sure the system doesn't just go, oh well, never mind, that was a terrible cock up. Let's just carry on the way we were before, because they will no doubt try to do that. We can't allow that. We can't allow that. There needs to be a sustained effort to make sure this doesn't happen again, or at least that the chance of it happening again are minimized. So, there's a lot more for us to do in the future. And I can't give any details about this, but I've already started to plan the next book that I'm going to write, even though the first one hasn't been released yet. And then, I've got a few things planned, a few ideas that I'd like to do. So they'll definitely be doing a lot more in the criminal justice space in the future. So I'm not going to disappear, that's for sure. Why? So here's a question for Jonathan. I mean, I could answer this question, but I'll get you. You can answer this, Jonathan. Why aren't the nursing unions and professional bodies pulling their fingers out and fighting for justice for Lucy?
Very, 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 very good question. I think they're scared, and I'm afraid that sometimes the medical profession is pathetic in terms of if they're just protecting their backs, and they're just worried about the implications that if they aren't successful, and I mean, somebody like me, I just couldn't. People have said to me, "But aren't you putting yourself at risk? By speaking out?" But I just it's such an important. It's something that's so important both for Lucy herself, but also for the implications that it has. But unfortunately, a lot of people in the nursing profession, or in the medical professions generally, just don't stand up for justice when they should do. What do you think?
So what do I think? I pretty much agree with you. I think that there's always this institutional self-protection instinct in any institution, where I was saying this in Mark's stream yesterday. People that are involved in those institutions, particularly at high levels, they almost intrinsically understand what is in their interest. And they something like this, they know if we back Lucy really strongly and then she's found guilty, people will say, why did you back this murderer really strongly? And it's going to damage our institution. So I think that would explain why they didn't do it. Of course, morally and ethically, they should. Morally and ethically, they should have given a very strong support, particularly when it was just allegations, but they didn't. And I think it's just self-preservation, basically.
Well, it's beyond that, because you see, we still overlook the fact that she is still convicted and she is still in prison, and we haven't won the fight yet. And of course, until we win the fight, we're on the wrong side. And these institutions and people in high do not want to ever be on the wrong side. And if there's still a risk that we won't, we don't know that we're going to be successful yet. I mean, we very, very much hope so. And we've got incredible evidence, and we couldn't have got better evidence, and we couldn't have got better people. I've often said, again, I've written to Lucy in prison, and I've said, literally, if you got the best headhunting firm in the world to find the best people to help you in your case, you couldn't have done better than the people that you've got, who have just come out of the woodwork of their own volition. And you have the most incredible team of people who are looking out for you. But the institutions themselves, and a large proportion of people who perhaps could come out, and there are many wonderful people have come out, but there are others that could have done. If they don't think they're going to be on the right side, they won't come out and support. And that's very sad.
Yeah, it is. It is. Someone has said people like Chris Morris and Mark Mays do not sleep. So I do sleep. I don't sleep enough. That's really the issue. But the thing is, my dog wakes me up. so I don't sleep as much as I should. But she's my equal number one priority. So she has to get whatever she wants whenever she wants it. So let's go a bit further down. Which brilliant 19th is our home? Yeah, I won't answer that question. It's just because we can't. Unfortunately, it's just not possible. Hopefully, Lucy will get out soon. But what are the chances that anything will change in the legal system? So I'll answer this first, and I'll ask Jonathan. Undoubtedly, there's going to be institutional resistance to change, as we just described. There always will be, because they're perfectly happy with the status quo. That's something that applies across multiple fields. It would apply to the financial system. The people that benefit from the system are always happy with the status quo, and the people that benefit from the system are usually powerful and prominent. So there will be institutional resistance. But what I would say to you is, as we've already mentioned earlier in this discussion, when this unravels, which I believe it's inevitable that Lucy will be exonerated. I don't know when that will happen, but I believe it will definitely happen. When that happens, it's going to be enormous, and there will be an opportunity, a window of opportunity. I mean, David Davis, as an example, has cited the Law Commission report from 2011 and the fact that it was completely ignored. So, when Lucy's exonerated, David Davis would be completely vindicated, and at that point, he would immediately say, "Right, why aren't you enacting the Law Commission report as a bare minimum?" But obviously, there would be an opportunity to examine other things. And as I say, it's really incumbent upon us, similarly in the way that this grassroots campaign has been very effectively run, it's up to us to do something similar with regard to criminal justice and say, look, it's not good enough. We can't just say, whoops, never mind, sorry, Lucy, let's just carry on the way we are now. It really is up to us to make a difference and to force, because the establishment will never change things of its own volition. It always comes from public pressure, always. What do you think, Jonathan?
Yeah, I echo everything. I think the sadness is that things don't change. I mean, when you think of the Bristol heart surgeons, and that was the late 80s, early 90s, certainly by the mid, I think maybe at the latest at the mid 90s. I mean, at the time, that was such an incredibly big event. The whistleblower, the death rates on the cardiac unit at Bristol Royal Infirmary was unacceptably high, and Phil Hammond goes on and on about this, and yet, at the time it was thought that massive change would occur because of it, but it never did. And I just hope that the Lucy Letby case, because it's so personal, it's just one nurse, she's had such absolutely abhorrent treatment, and then I hope that it will be a catalyst that really does implement change. But the difficulty is that there has been attempts for many years to make changes in all aspects of clinical care. I mean, as I say, I see the sort of crossover between medicine and law because that's my background, and I'm just very sad and skeptical that there've been many other cases which you would have thought would have changed the system, but it just doesn't seem to do so, particularly this sort of whistleblowing. I mean, if things are going wrong, people should be allowed to whistleblow and let the authorities know. But in fact, it's getting worse now for whistleblowers than it ever was. And that's there are certain things that just fundamentally must change as a result of this. And I just hope that Lucy Letby is the catalyst that finally does see change that must occur.
Yeah, I agree entirely. Just Caddy Lady saying this has been brilliant. I really need to go to bed now, though. Thank you for all you do, Chris and Jonathan, as well. No problem. Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. Chris, will you send Dewi a signed copy of your book? Dewi will see all of the sections that are about him before the book is published. So he will be fully aware of what's in the book. I won't send him a signed copy. I don't think he would welcome that, but he will see. He will see it 100%. Yeah. From start to finish, the police upset the parents and made them suffer more irresponsible behaviour. So I did find. I mean, I do believe that, as you know. I did find their statement they made in relation to this CPS thing. I found that to be really. I don't know if despicable is fair. Distasteful, certainly, because they are saying, oh, respect their family's privacy. We don't know who the families are, so what? This is your fault, as I said in my video. If the families are upset, which is quite likely, it's your fault that they're upset. So you can't take the moral high ground and start saying to other people, don't do this and don't do that. Like you're not the good guys. So I just found that embarrassing.
100%. I think that was an absolutely fantastic point to make, because how dare they inflict all this on the parents remain anonymous, and then to say respect their privacy. I mean, it's just utterly, completely ludicrous. It's just beyond belief, really.
Yeah, I mean, they've deeply upset them on what we know are trumped up charges, and then they've got the audacity to say, "Oh, don't upset the parents, anyone." I mean, it's outrageous. It's outrageous. They're an embarrassment. They are a true. I mean, you wouldn't want them overseeing if your cat got stuck up a tree, would you? Let alone what they're doing now. It's just awful. So Keith says, thanks, Chris and Jonathan. Brilliant chat. I feel the tide has turned now and the momentum is unstoppable. I hope you're right. Obviously, I hope that's the case. We'll carry on doing everything we can. Goss allowed carte blanche to both Evans and J-Ram. The whole thing was a travesty and utterly farcical. So I've actually just recorded something today where we're going to discuss the judge's role in the case. So I hope you enjoy that when it comes out. I'm recording loads of interviews over the next couple of weeks.
That's a brilliant point, actually. I mean, who's the guest who you discussed that with? The judge's role.
So it's Lulu, who's been on the channel before. So
yeah. She
was brilliant. A solicitor for 13 years.
She was. I saw that. She's excellent. She's brilliant. Yeah.
So she's obviously a very good solicitor. Without revealing too much, this tells you everything. This tells you everything you need to know, right? So she was obviously a very good solicitor. She did it for many years. She voluntarily dropped out of the profession. Now she does other things. And I only learned today, because I recorded this today, that they're now trying to get her back. So they're actively saying, come back to the profession, because new people don't want to join. New people don't want to join the profession. So that speaks volumes, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And she's saying, I don't mean to be rude, but she's not. I don't know how old she is, but she's not 25 years old, as far as I know. She can't be, because she works as a solicitor for 13 years. So I don't know her age, but I think she's younger than me. She said that there aren't, it's not like there's loads of young solicitors out there who are younger than me, because people don't want to join the profession because of all the systemic problems and all the pressure they get put under, etc., etc. So yeah, that'll be coming up soon. I don't know when I'll post that, because I'm recording multiple videos and I'll spread them out a little bit over the next month and I don't know. I'm recording so many, I don't even know how long it's going to be. I'll work it out. But yeah, that video will be online eventually anyway, for sure. Does anyone know how Lucy's parents are faring? I do hope they know that they have our support. So all I can say is I haven't had any contact with Lucy's parents at all. The reason for that is I don't want to bother them at a time when they're obviously going to be suffering and dealing with a lot of stuff. I will be writing to them when my book comes out, and I will be giving them a copy. I don't know how they're faring, and I don't know how they are, and it would be wrong of me to comment, really. I don't know if Jonathan wishes to add anything to that, but
I want to be quite sensitive on this issue. I know a bit, but they're such private people that I don't really think it's right for me to say anything other than we're trying, certainly that we're trying to give them as much support as we can, but I really don't want to say any more than that because I know it's a very, very sensitive subject.
Yeah, that's fair. Dewi needs to be forced to read the entire book like the forced film watching in A Clockwork Orange. Yeah, that would be good. That would be good. Yeah. I think the best thing would be to do the Clockwork Orange thing, but make him watch himself. that would be. Here's a collection of your interviews, Dewi. Why don't you watch this? That'd be good. But yeah, I like the comment. So Keith says there will be resistance to change, but I feel a big step in that change will be the release of your book. You only get to do that once, need to get maximum publicity. It's going to be massive. Well, that's certainly the goal. I do have support in this, and I'll do everything I possibly can. The only thing I need is support. I need support from people that really care. I need you to buy it. If you want to buy multiple copies, you can. It's entirely up to you. I won't ask for that, obviously, but reviews are very, very, very important on the major book reviewing platforms. Obviously, you know what the biggest one is. That's the only thing I need, but I'll do everything that I possibly can, of course. Thanks to Chris and Jonathan. Appreciate what you're both doing. Thanks for being here. We really appreciate it. Let's go a little bit further down. Evan should be made to record the audiobook. That would be good. Yeah, that's a great idea. I'll approach him and ask, see if he's interested.
If you give him enough money, he'll probably do it.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I just need to make it sweeten the deal for him so he can buy another jumper. He's only got one, as we've established. So, well, it's going to be me. It's going to be me doing the audiobook, and that's pretty much been decided. So, it's interesting. I mean, I've learned a lot over the last couple of years, and I now know how an audiobook is recorded and what I need to do. So I'll be doing that at some point, probably, and it'll be interesting. I didn't think I'd ever do that, but yeah, it'd be interesting. Christopher Berry D would be great to interview. He's done a book on Lucy, I think, but I wonder what he thinks. Yeah, I try and get on as many guests as I can, and I get lots of suggestions, and I do try to connect with everyone that I possibly can. It's difficult to connect to every single person, of course. I always write everyone. If someone suggests a name, I note them down in my massive file of names that I've got and investigate them. So I will do that. So someone asked a question about the news on Thirlwall. So that was from Jonathan. We discussed that right at the start of the stream, and it's just that he's written to Thirlwall and they've said we're going to continue with our timetable. So that means they'll make an announcement in February and they'll make the recommendations in April. But both Jonathan and I remain far from convinced that they will actually do that, even though they've said that they will do that. But we're not sure if they will do that. So someone says the average age of duty solicitors is almost retirement age. So that would say a lot as well. So we're nearly at the end of the comments now. Are nursing staff pressurising unions to protect them from future victimisation from doctors, given that this is a prevalent issue? So do you have an opinion on that, Jonathan?
I don't think they are. I mean, I think I'm as I say, I was a full-time GP for 20 years, and I did a lot of time in hospitals, and I've now been I've had what I call a sort of a portfolio career for nearly 10 years now. But I think that the atmosphere and the relations in hospital are not getting any better, and if anything, the pressures are making things even worse. So I think until Lucy is exonerated and the root cause of all this scapegoating is really looked into, I don't think anything's improving at the moment, I have to say, sadly.
Yeah. So I mean, the final comment that I'll read is how would nurses pressure the unions? The profession is terrified of losing their pin if they rock any boats. We're programmed not to question the establishment. Of course, they're very vulnerable, and they know they're vulnerable. So, yeah, a fair comment. It's very hard for them. It's very hard for them. And yeah, so we made it to the end. I've caught up. We've done it on the dot, 3 hours, 4 minutes. We've succeeded in life, so I'm happy with that. So, I'm supposed to bring Kiko onto the stream. Are you awake, Keeks? Kiko awake? You were sleeping, wasn't you? You was tired. I don't think Kiko's going to be very responsive today. Let's see if we can get her. Keeks, would you like something to eat? Would Kiko like something to eat? Would you like it? Are you going to come up? Are you going to come up? No, she's settled in. She's settled in. She's let me down 2 live streams in a row. She's let me down and not come on the stream. Come on, here. No, she's not going to do it. Come on. Come on. Oh no, no, she's not. She's not. She's not obedient. She has no. She's a very, very intelligent dog. Very intelligent, and she's also very, very. She's fearless. So if she meets another dog, inevitably the other dog ends up backing away from her because she's just fearless and she just dominates every dog. Like we have a joke that if Kiko meets other dogs, we say, let them just all get together for 5 minutes. They'll work out that Kiko's the boss and then they'll be fine after that. And that always happens. I've seen dogs twice the size of her. They just back away from her because she has no obedience whatsoever. None. I mean, like, you just have to give her what she wants and try and make her understand that you're going to look after her. But she, I mean, I often say, like, she'd be really good at cruft. She could understand what to do and she'd learn and she'd be brilliant. But the problem is, if someone had a burger in the front row, that's it. She's just gone immediately. She'd just run straight off to get her. And it wouldn't matter what I said. She wouldn't pay any attention to me. So, yeah, I don't think she's in the mood. I'll try one last time. Kiko, are you coming up? Are you going to come up? No, she's not. So I tried. So we'll hopefully have Kiko in a future live stream. Or I'll try and get her on for an interview at some point. I'll try to get her on camera because we've not been on for a while. But she's very well. She's looking up at me now, thinking, when am I going to get something? She's just been sleeping. So yeah, she's an alpha female, as you rightly say, Denise. So thanks for joining us, Jonathan. It's been really great. I know I've wanted to get you on for a while, and it's been really good. So thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's always an enormous pleasure and an enormous honour as well. So thank you.
Thank you. We'll get you on again soon. We'll see if we can work out how to do the thing you've suggested, like a kind of reflection on the journey, on the timeline, on the people involved. That'd be a really nice thing to do. And if we can get that together by the end of the month, then we might do that.
Great.
But yeah, thanks for joining us, everyone, and I'll speak to you all again soon in some capacity. Goodbye to everyone. Thanks to everyone for being here. We really appreciate it. Cheers, Jonathan. I'll speak to you again.
See you soon. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.